Hey, Vince, am I supposed to press the record button?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Please.
Da-da-da-da.
All right, let's get this show on the road. We're going to roll in five, four, three. Welcome to the Ham Radio Workbench podcast, your bi-weekly deep dive on technical topics of interest to the radio amateur. Well, on today's show, we have a special guest. That's Aaron, AE0LZ. Aaron is the owner of a company called Modern Morse, and he makes CW paddles, and we're going to learn all about Aaron's experience and his products and how he designs and builds them, and we'll talk about all things CW and CW paddles in today's show. If this is the first time you've joined us, we're really happy you're here. We have over 250 episodes in our back catalog. You can find all of them on our website or your favorite podcast player. You can also follow us on our website, hamradioworkbench.com. On Facebook, the group is Ham Radio Workbench. On Discord, from the webpage, you can get a Never Expires link to our Discord and join lots of listeners over there talking about all kinds of projects and what's on their workbench and technical questions and other unrelated topics. And also, you can chat with us live and direct on the Brandmeister DMR Talk Group 31075 and our Allstar node 55915. So as I mentioned, on today's show, we have Aaron, AE0LZ, and Aaron is the founder of Modern Morse, and Modern Morse is a precision manufacturing company. He designs and produces high-quality Morse code paddles for ham radio operators, and I first met Aaron at Hamvention last year, and I really loved seeing his paddles. They looked really cool. And a couple of months ago, I thought, I want to get one of those paddles, and I tried to order one, and Aaron was completely out of stock on every cool color combination he makes. So I thought, well, if I'm ever going to get a paddle, I probably need to invite him on the show. So I thought, well, why don't we get him on the show and we'll chat about his paddles. So hopefully they're back in stock. I'm sure we'll get a big update on that. So Aaron has an interesting background. He's actually a disabled combat vet and a former airborne infantryman. So don't mess with Aaron, no matter what happens when you get the paddles. Don't complain. He spent more than 15 years working in CNC machine programming and engineering, getting a start in machining with components for the broadcast and later production precision manufacturing for the motorsports and aerospace industries. And today he combines that experience with modern design and manufacturing techniques, which we'd love to hear more about, as he makes precision machined paddles for ham radio operators. And he also happens to have a degree in cybersecurity, although in his words, he says he's more of a slacker than a hacker. So we'll see about that. And anyway, Aaron, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So we want to get an update on whether or not you've got paddles in stock. So let me just ask you quickly, do you have any in stock right now?
So I am currently in a production cycle. And so what we did was we went to a waitlist pre-order style. So if you go to the website, instead of having to spend, $200 some up front and then have to wait 3 months, now it's like $15. And then I know exactly what colors to make for what people, and then I build them to order, and then I'll ship them. And then you don't get charged the remainder of the balance until it's built and ready to go out the door. So.
Oh, cool. So yeah, I want to talk about the look of your paddles is really cool with the multicolors and all that is very, very creative. So we'll come back to that. And also on today's show, we have Thomas K4SWL. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I just arrived in Raleigh, North Carolina. So if I sound a little different, it's because I'm a little further east than normal.
I don't think that's why.
Yeah,
so it's so funny. I think it was yesterday we turned on the air conditioning for the first time in the house, and it wasn't for very long. I mean, it was really just at nighttime. It wasn't that it was a scorcher of a day, but it probably reached 80 degrees. And then this morning it was snowing at the house and 32 degrees and just tons of wind. So if you get tired of the weather, just kind of fall asleep and you'll wake up to different weather.
Wow. Did you bring a radio with you?
Did I bring a radio with me? I realized as I was coming over here, I was like, how long am I going to be gone? I have 5 radios with me. So yeah, I brought a few.
Good, good, very good. We also have Vince, VE6LK. Hey, Vince.
Good after evening noon.
How's life in Alberta?
It's good. Like Thomas, I was on my bicycle on Saturday, kind of like Thomas. That's my version of air conditioning. And on Sunday, we had 8 inches of snowfall.
Wow.
It's
Holy
called
cow.
springtime in Alberta.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was winter like?
Winter was less, what's the word? Less dynamic than what I just described. But yeah, it was 58, 60 degrees on Saturday, and Sunday it was 20 and 8 inches of snow falling. So it was crazy.
We've had no snow here in the Portland area. 2 years ago, we had a couple days of snow. This year we had zero, but like a lot of rain. Not a big surprise there. But man, it hasn't been cold enough. Not like you guys.
Yeah.
So on the show today, we also have Paul, WD9GCO, and Paul is operating from an exotic location. Hello, Paul.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm currently in the middle of the ocean on a ship with what is apparently the world's worst implementation of Starlink internet. So we'll talk about that later.
I was going to say, but the audio fidelity combined with the latency, I thought you were in orbit somewhere.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way. I might get better reception.
He sounds like he's
so.
On location in Bouvet. That's what he's really doing. He just wants an easy contact with Bouvet.
That might be my only chance to actually work them, is to be there.
Yeah, I can just see it now. I work Bouvet on 146.52 from the boat. All right. Well, so we'll get into modern Morse and making Morse code paddles and all that kind of good stuff. But first, we're going to do a little bit of a roundtable about what's on our workbenches. And Aaron, as our guest of honor, we're going to start with you. So what's on your workbench?
Okay, so I have decided, as the solar cycle goes down, I need to start preparing, and so I decided to get into satellites. And I don't really go into these projects lightly, so I went and panic bought an ICOM 9700, right? Just like boom, gotta have it. And then I just got, and this is the part that I'm having to work on, is I just got the Yaesu G5500 LAS rotor system, and that's actually sitting over here on a chair in pieces because I have to design I'm going to machine out a custom like quick change base for it because I plan on using this portable. So like go out, set it up at a park because I want to do satellites from parks, and at some point we can get into it. But I want to do EME park to park at some point.
Oh, there you go.
That is, I think that's the goal. And if anyone has heard of it being done, let me know because I haven't. And I think that would be cool to be one of the first people to do EME park to park. But for now, we're going to settle with satellites, and then we'll go with the big satellite in the sky at some later date when I have more power. So
cool. What kind of antennas are you going to put on that thing?
So I initially, just to test the system out, I have an Arrow antenna, the 2-band version. It has the duplexer in it, but I don't think I need that with the 9700. I got to figure that out because the 9700 I bought came with a duplexer, a DX Engineering version. So I will. I got to figure out the wiring for that, but I'll use the Arrow initially for testing, and then I'll probably go with, I think it's M squared or M2, the Sat Pack. That seems to be the consensus that everyone goes with. So that for sure. And then obviously at some point I will make my own because I will find something that I want changed, especially when it comes to setup. That's something that has had my gears turning for a while is I want to make something that doesn't require that I thread all the elements into place. I would like it to just spring up like an umbrella and be set up. So those thoughts have gone through my head. Yes, there's some CAD out there that I've put together to try and solve those problems. I've 3D printed some parts, but that's a long project. That'll be a 2027. I'll come out strong with that project.
So the initial antennas, besides the Arrow, the SatPack, that's the dual egg beater setup, I believe.
I don't think that's not an egg beater. That is a Yagi. I think it's a 7 or 8 element Yagi.
Okay. Cross polarized on each band.
Yep. And then you'll have 2 on either side because it'll be I'll run the like 2.5-inch pipe through the LAS rotor, and then I'll have them both set up. I used that exact system at Pack Beach with HRA last October. Mike Ping, one of the organizers for that, he brought a whole system out. So I basically used his system as my shopping list for what I wanted to do. I was like, what you have here works great. So I got the sat box that just makes satellites, puts it on easy mode. I mean, I can't. We'll see. Like I haven't set it up yet, so I don't know how easy the setup will be. But based off what I saw when I was at Pack Beach last year, it was, yeah, I said it's satellites on easy mode.
So the sat box is like a little appliance that drives the rotor, right? It knows, it has a list, I guess, the Keplerian data, and it knows where to point the antenna once it's aligned properly.
Yeah, and it has so a couple of things it's doing. It's controlling the CAT interface for the radio, so it's doing the Doppler shift for you, and it's also running the LAS rotor at the same time. And so cool. It has a web interface. You connect to the web interface. You can say, this is where I'm at. You zero out the antennas to like north and level. And then it has a list of like, here's all the passes that are coming past you with the footprint. You click on the next one that you want with the correct mode that you want. You can filter that out and say, okay, I want to talk on Q100 doing CW, right? And then it'll change all the frequencies for you and set everything up, point the rotor in the right direction, and then you just operate. So.
That's great. The thing I've seen at DX Engineering's booth at Hamvention. They like introduced something, 2 years ago, maybe, or 3 years ago, that was something like you're talking about, but it's like a self-contained package.
Yeah, let me grab this real quick. Hold on.
So we had the guys who designed that thing drop by when we were doing the QSO Today Virtual Ham Expo. We had a lounge, and the designers of that thing came in and were hanging out in the lounge. And I had never heard of this before. They described it, and I thought, man, that's the thing that I didn't know existed that I would love to get.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep. Now, my the first critique, I haven't even powered this thing on, but I assumed that it would have an Ethernet interface. But I think it just uses a Wi-Fi interface on the inside. So
okay.
I might be able to crack it open and hardwire it in. Because that's what I want to do is have everything like in a Pelican box all set up and pre-wired up. So that way I just pop the tailgate on the Sequoia and, well, now it'll be a new vehicle because the Sequoia died last week. But on whatever my adventure vehicle is, pop the gate, take the faceplate off of the Pelican case and just be able to set up the LAS rotor in under 5 minutes. That's the goal. Is if it takes me more than, like, I come from a race car industry, so it's like if it takes more than 5 minutes, we're not doing it.
That's awesome. So, I would love to do that. I sometimes I've seen pictures of these guys setting up Satcom antennas, like the little UHF cross-polarized Yagi that kind of folds out and sits on the ground. And I thought, man, that'd be so awesome if we could have something so portable and work satellites like that. So it'd be really cool.
We had some really cool systems in the Army that we used for that. I started out early in like 2004 timeframe. So we were actually still using HF. Like I was in like the transition period where satellite was there, but that was the cool guy thing. They were still using HF, like burst comms. They still use HF, but like it kind of went by the wayside, especially in theater, because they're like, hey, we got satellites. And then suddenly in the last 5 years, it's been like HF has become a big thing in the service again. So, and some of the soldiers I was talking to, a first sergeant in a commo unit, he's like, most of my junior enlisted, they can't even spell HF. So we got a lot of learning to do. So
it's funny how that comes back. I mean, the whole notion of HF communications is so magical and useful with no infrastructure and I could totally see where the new shiny thing comes along. It's like, man, we could do this 100% satellite, 100% uptime, totally predictable push button thing until it doesn't work or whatever. And then you have the fallback for HF. I mean, and it's all the old dudes who know how to do HF.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
So, and they're also really into QRP. I mean, they don't really call it QRP, but they actually have an exercise that they do called QRPX every year. And that's where different units will get together. They'll get on the HF bands, and they're basically trying to make contact with each other because, especially in a tactical environment, you don't want to be broadcasting 600 watts. You want the least amount of energy possible to get your message across. So the enemy can't hear you. And
I would think portability would be so important that would be, another factor. So it's easy to do it.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of the weight per watt of military radios is a little absurd because they like you'll have like this thing puts out 5 watts and it's like 25 pounds.
Jeez.
So you're like, but it'll you can tune up the bumper on a Jeep, so
And it helps with traction if you put it in the back of the vehicle.
Trust me. Yeah, exactly. You can just lay them out and create a dock to get across a river.
So for the sake of the show notes, I have popped a link to that SAT ASL rotator controller. It's from a company called CSN Technologies. I've had their iGate Mini running flawlessly at my shop for years. So really, really well-made product.
We should get those guys in the show. I think their stuff is very good. One other thing I wanted to ask you, Aaron, as a professional mechanical engineering and manufacturing kind of guy, when you look at a thing like I'm going to get an antenna, and I bet there's probably few products that you buy that you look at and go, man, that's well made. I mean, doesn't it like rub you the wrong way when you look at a lot of the ham radio stuff that looks kind of like sort of junky stuff?
Sometimes, yeah. With some products, yes. With some products, no. I'm more impressed than not. Maybe that's just because I'm a glass half full kind of guy. But I was at the gym today, and I was using this like lifestyle cable pull down machine, and I was looking at this one arm that was on there. I'm like, oh, they cast that part because I can see the sand dimpling in it. Like those while I'm doing reps, that's the thought going through my mind. Is I was like, how did they make that? So. Those are the things that happen to me, especially now. When I was first getting into machining, it was I would pick things up and be like, how is this made, right? Like how did this happen? And before I got into machining, I worked for a company that made laser scanning metrology equipment, and I was an application engineer for them. So I traveled probably every other week, and I was going to different plants around the country. And so I said, like, my life is basically a new episode of How Things Are Made every single week. I mean, it really is. Like, you walk in the door and it's like, I can now tell you exactly how Procter & Gamble makes toilet paper, right? And all the weird things they have to deal with, and how, like, oh, the embossing, they have problems with this, and they have to do predictive maintenance here, and they have to do all that. So, like, it was pretty neat that as an application engineer, I was having to adapt and mold my mind to each one of those manufacturing processes, which I think has helped set me up. Because now when I look at something and I go, I want to make something like that, but better, and I'm going to, like, this is what I'm working on. I know the process to go down that route, right? I can be like, okay, this would be a cast thing. This would be, liquid metal injection, things of that nature. So, yeah.
Yeah. I would think that's quite an education of what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, especially at scale. So, and there's certain things that when you go to scale with a project, now you're talking about millions of dollars of equipment. And it's also interesting to watch startup companies and how, like, what they'll do. So, for instance, like I got a lathe behind me, right? That's a DMG Mori NLX 1500 SY. So for any of the machinists out there, that's my street cred. So that's not the sort of machine that like a garage machinist would buy outright to start with. Like that is you turn it on, you load 400 feet of bar into a barred feeder next to it, and you make one part and you just let it run, right? And so that's not a great prototyping machine, because you want to make one doohickey with it. You're going to spend an hour or two on just programming and setup just to make one part. And then you want to switch and make it again, right? And things of that nature. So that's like that would be a high volume, low mix sort of production machine, versus then I have two, you can't see them on the camera, but I'm looking at them. I had a Haas VF3 here and then a DM1 over there. And both those machines, they're 3-axis vertical mills, and they will all CNC controlled. And they have tool changers in them. They both have 24 pocket tool changers, which allows you to quickly change between projects. Like, you could get a smaller machine that you have to hand change the tools into, but that means you got to be standing in front of the machine between tool changes. One of these machines I can actually set up depending on the cycle time and just walk away for an hour and go get lunch and then come back and then change out to another part if I want to. So that also comes down to the fixturing, how you're going to hold the part in the machine. That's one of the things I had to learn early on is, like, there's the machining strategies, but then there's also just how you're going to hold the material in the machine, like not just in a vise, right? Because you have to get access to all different sides, and how you're going to, how you're going to do the second operation, how you're going to grip that, and things of that nature. So when I'm looking at parts and how they're made, sometimes I go, I don't know how you did that. Not and make a profit. So
do you do and well now we're kind of getting into the manufacturing stuff. We'll come back to that. Anything else on the Workbench?
Mainly just the rotor right now, and like that's my 50-meter target right now, to use a military reference there. Like that's what I'm focused on, is getting that set up. And I gotta do maintenance on one of my resin printers. And so there's a couple of parts that I need to make to help with the manufacturing process that I'm going to resin print. So resin printing is different than like FDM, right? So if you have like a bamboo printer, you're doing fused deposition, modeling, right? You're basically hot glue gun, putting plastic down. A resin printer, those are UV resin printers. And so it has a 4K display on it, and it basically will UV cure resin one whole plane at a time and then move up. And you can get ridiculously high resolutions with that. I mean, it's probably like, 2000 DPI I can get with that. So we're talking, not micron level, but you're in the range, right? That order of magnitude between layers, depending on the resolution and how you set the part up. So I can make things. So if I want to make a mold that I'm then going to cast into silicone, because that's something I can talk about, which is there's some silicone products related to the CW keys that I'm looking at casting myself instead of sending that out. So that's something that I got to fix the printer though, because it got some resin down inside the inside of it somewhere. So that's a hazard.
Wow, that sounds pretty exotic for those of us who can barely hot glue gun print something. The whole idea is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, the downside to, I think one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of resin printing, especially for practical applications for things that you're going to use like out in the field. One, the resin will continuously cure. So if you have it out in regular sunlight, it will slowly degrade with the UV light that it sees from the sun. So you're really not going to like resin 3D print something and then like make it an attachment for a roof rack on your car. It's not going to survive more than a couple of months, right?
Wow.
And they have some really strong resins out there that are really cool. But I was just reading a couple of months ago a white paper about how they're using Cerakote to basically Cerakote bond, which is the same process I use for my keys. I can do on resin prints, and then that'll basically encase it and keep it from continuously curing, stop the curing process. And then there's some applications for rapid prototyping parts that way. I don't know if I'd use it for full production, but for rapid prototyping, that's where it's at. So.
Wow. So I think we're going to take a deeper dive on some of the manufacturing stuff in a little bit. But you have a pretty amazing Workbench. I got to tell you that. So you're kind of lucky because you've got all this professional gear and the wherewithal to use it, and the rest of us are like, where's the hand drill?
That's fair. Yeah, and we have and we can I guess we'll talk about that in the manufacturing process. But right in the other room, I have a clean room with a full Samsung pick and place line, so we can do all SMD.
Oh wow.
Stuff. So yeah, we've got all the tools here. A lot of this is left over, I should say, from when we worked with Broadcast Electronics. My dad was the owner of Broadcast Electronics for a long time, and they made large FM transmitters, and that's where I got involved. So I was working as an engineer up in Detroit. I moved back here to work for my dad. One of the things is I went to him and I said, hey, you're spending a lot of time making parts, and he had identified, because he's a Six Sigma black belt, like we're buying all of these parts and we're holding millions of dollars of inventory on the shelf for something that we're not, we're only going to sell 10 of a year, right? But we're going to have 50 years worth of supply for maintenance and warranty, right? And I was like, let's just, we both sat there and was like, let's do on-time delivery. Well, for all the machined parts, we were like, we need to vertically integrate. And so I was like, all right, I've run a machine before as a hobbyist, so let's buy a machine. I'll get some training. We'll start going. So,
wow.
Yeah. So that's how I got started professionally in machining, was doing that. And then I just found some really good mentors that I knew from the motorsports industry that I'd met along the way that ran machine shops, and I just went in and said, teach me, and went from there. So got a lot of really good lessons along the road with that. So
with all that background, surely you can make a Morse code key.
Yeah, exactly. And that was where we got to. I think it's been 4 years now. 4 years ago, I said, you know what? I'm gonna learn Morse code. Right? I'm gonna do this. And I'm maybe it's the ADHD in me, but I was like, I need to do this today. Right? When the thought pops into my head, it has to be done today. And so I was like, I just get online and I start buying keys, but like, I was like, I'm going to buy one of those. I'm going to buy one of those. I'm going to buy one of those. That's a little expensive, but I'll get one of those too. And I just nonstop, but I needed one today. And, I had seen, this guy, Larry N0SA, right? And he had somebody said, hey, he makes, I think I'd seen Kyle AA0Z's video on one of his keys. So I emailed the guy and I said, hey, like, grace me with the presence of one of your keys. How much money does it cost? How do I get one? And overnight it to me. And he's like, I don't have to overnight it. You only live 30 minutes away from me. Come down. And so I was like, I'm in the car. So like that day I drove down to Larry's house. I didn't even realize he was a local ham. And he shows me his shop, shows me his cabinet of all the absolute gorgeous bugs that he's custom designed. And then he sold me a key, and that started a really good friendship. So
wow.
And so now he comes up to the shop up here. I've made parts for him, and he's helped me learn. Like, I think that was the cheat code, because he was able to be like, look, this is what the operators are looking for. They care about this, this, and this, and that helped me in my design process. So I was able to take that and go, okay, I know some of these priorities, because if you just start out, a new CW operator probably doesn't know exactly what they want, right? But I wanted to start making my own key. And so I probably went through 15 or 20 revisions just in the size, shape, and everything that I was working with. A lot of it I 3D printed up front, and I was like just checking the feel, what I liked about it. But that was one of the key features, if I can say that. I wanted a fully enclosed key. I wanted the least amount of open parts to the world as possible. And so I started designing one that way. So, yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. I thought this is some of the stuff we'll get to in the second half of the show, but it's kind of good to get a teaser up front. Anyway, so that we'll come back to that. Sure. And to kind of wrap up the Workbench part, Thomas, let me point the big finger over at you. What's on the Workbench?
Oh dear. So, it's really strange. The past few weeks, the past couple of weeks especially, I've been doing a lot of things that are like radio adjacent. One of them I want to say is radio adjacent, but I found for the first time in my life, since maybe I was a little kid, I just bought 2 Lego sets. Now, and let me explain. So this is going to be, go ahead and get the
wait a minute. The thing you have to explain is what took you so long, not why you did it.
I know, right? Well, actually, I've got my friend Miles, who's a ham radio operator. He's really into Legos, and he keeps me abreast of like all the different things that are coming out. And Paul, I have to assume, looking at you right now, that you know a thing or two about Legos.
Yes, sir, I do. Since I was but a wee tot, and you had to make the things yourself out of all the bricks instead of getting things that looked like things.
Yep. That was sort of, and that was my experience growing up. I had this like massive bin of Legos that were like multicolored, and I'd drop them on the floor, and then people would complain because they would step on them and all that. And but so here's what happened. There was I think probably, several months ago, maybe end of last year, I can't remember, there was an Enterprise D Lego set, right? So like next generation Enterprise Lego set. And I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I've got to get that. And then I looked at the size of it and I was like, if I get that, that's going to take up most of my office, like, because my office is really tiny. And I was like, I just can't make that thing fit in here. I mean, I just don't know where I'd put it. So I didn't order it, right? And then I think about 3 weeks ago or so, 2-3 weeks ago, Legos. So something you got to know about me, I'm a massive fan of Andy Weir, the author, right? Who wrote The Martian, Artemis, and Project Hail Mary. And Project Hail Mary is an awesome book. And if Mark were here, we would both be kind of geeking out about that right now because we're both big fans. And so now, of course, there's a Project Hail Mary movie that's coming out in a couple of weeks. Probably by the time the show's out, it may be in theaters already. I think it will be. And I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm hoping it's a tenth of what the book was. But then Lego came out with a Project Hail Mary set. And so like I just like panic bought it. Sort of like Aaron has proven he's done in the past too. I panic bought it. I was just like, I gotta get this. It's got a little Rocky, and anybody who's read Project Hail Mary knows what Rocky is. It's a little alien. It's got a little Rocky in it. I've got to get this thing, and it was a little bit more of a manageable size, right? I could think of a place I could put it in my office, and so okay, good. So I got it, and then I think it was this morning or last night. Miles, my friend, who you guys met at Hamvention last year, is I will get his call sign wrong. But Miles let me know that Lego was coming out with a 1010 or 1010 spaceship. Okay, now for our listeners in Europe, especially, like I'm a massive, massive fan of these Franco-Belgian French comic books, for lack of a better word. They're called bande dessinée, and they're wonderful. They're like graphic novels, but they've been around since the 20s and the like last century 20s, and they're amazing, and they're super diverse. There's a huge culture of that in a lot of French speaking countries. Every time I go to Quebec, I load up on these things because they're hard to find here. But Tintin has been translated into like a bazillion languages, and he has a really iconic rocket in this one. I don't know what it's called in English. It's called Objectif Lune, which is like, the mission to the moon sort of thing. And I've always loved the design of that. And anybody that likes Tantan, that's like the icon for Tantan stuff. And so they came out with one, and Miles let me know about it. I think it was last night. And then I just said, let me know if it comes to fruition. Cause he said, it's just kind of a rumor, but I think it was pretty solid. And then this morning they did release it so you could pre-buy it. And again, I just grabbed it. And that was it. So yeah, I've gone. Oh yes, and George is sharing a picture of this, and I've actually seen. So when Heather and I, my wife and I, were when we were living in Europe, we took a train to Brussels one time. We spent some time in Brussels. I love Brussels, and the Hergé Museum, which is Hergé's the guy that writes all the Tintin books, and they have a museum for him, and they have like the rocket model in there and everything. Oh, it's just I totally geek out about that stuff. So I have 2 incoming Lego sets that just like, oh my gosh, I don't know. It's a crazy world out there. Maybe I'm doing this just to kind of get my mind off of it.
Paul?
Yeah, Thomas, for those that are watching at home, we have a significant time delay with me, so I have to raise my hand like a child in school and wait to be called on. You run into the same problem with the Enterprise D, which, by the way, is my all-time favorite Enterprise, that I also ran into the dilemma, aside from the cost, of the Millennium Falcon kit, which is also the size of your average coffee table or larger. So I don't own one of those.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are massive. And I went to a bookstore in Conway, South Carolina. If you're ever in downtown Conway, there's a little bookstore downtown. It's really nice. His husband and wife run it. And the husband, all of these like Lego sets he's bought that are too big for his house, like the Concorde and the Millennium Falcon, and like all these, they're up on top of the shelves in this bookstore. They look out of place in that they don't look like, it's not a science fiction store or something like that, but like they look beautiful. And you look at them, you're like, wow, that's really cool. That would never fit in my house. And my wife is not going to let me have that on the kitchen table or something, right? But anyway, yes, so that happened. Another thing I've been playing with that's really, really fun is our friend Ara, N6ARA, made a really cool little antenna that's built on this Gawant antenna, Gawant, and he calls it the tiny Gawant because everything that he makes is tiny. And it's just a cool little, it's a little antenna that you can put on your radio. It's got a BNC connector on the bottom of it that looks sort of like an AX1 or just a little small portable vertical antenna like that. It has probably a 3 or 4 foot telescoping whip on top of it. But the cool thing about it is it actually has a little dial with gearing on it, and it's a manual antenna tuner that's built into it, even with a little tiny SWR bridge so you can see an LED if you've tuned it properly. And so you can have it on top of a radio that doesn't have an internal ATU. And all of these sort of coil-loaded small verticals with a counterpoise, they're very high Q, so they're very narrow bandwidth. And you usually require some sort of ATU inside your radio in order to finish off the tune if you want to have a decent SWR. And this one, you can do it on the antenna itself, which is really cool. And so I've been playing around with it. I haven't done an activation yet. I will do an activation here within the next few days with it, using the Mountain Topper MTR3B Curahi model, which is the latest 3-band Mountain Topper that has 40, 20, and 15 meters on it. And the tiny Gawant, I think, goes down to 30 meters. But I've tried it at my house. In fact, I hunted a few POTA parks. If I hunted you this week, that was probably what I was using. I was also using a little prototype radio I'm helping someone with right now as well. But like the really cool thing about it is this antenna is just so portable, and it's kind of quirky and weird, and it's kind of touchy. But Ara made this really cool like gearing on it so that you're making the most of these tiny motions that you're doing on this really tiny device on top of your radio. And it's a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to taking this out and tinkering with it and playing with it. And to be honest with you, I think, and I should say that what makes the Curahi model of the MTR3B so appealing is it has built-in capacitive touch paddles that I've never really used holding it in my hand, right? So I've got a really thin battery, and I put it on the back of the radio and just hold it there, and I can almost use it like KH1 mode, so pedestrian portable, which is what I did with it this week at home. So yeah, there's that. I have been, like I said, I'm helping someone with like a little prototype thing that we'll be learning about a little bit later on, possibly by the time this podcast is out. But for right now, it's a bit secret squirrel. But I realized when I fired up my soldering iron, it had that kind of, hey, you haven't fired me up in a long time smell. and did some soldering, had a really good time with it. And I made like the most ridiculous mistake when I was building something that I then had to go back and it had to be fixed. And it's like one of those things, like a polarization thing, when you kind of get a little too happy-go-lucky with placing parts and that sort of thing. And that took me back a peg or two. Not that my ego's ever been very big with soldering anyway. But has that ever happened to you guys?
Which part of that?
Getting the polarization wrong on a part that you're actually paying attention to the polarization and you think you're doing it right anyway, but you're like so confident you just stick it in there and solder it.
Oh yeah, that's called Tuesday.
Never.
Well, or did you ever grab the soldering iron and grab the wrong end is the other question.
Yeah. Yep.
Something smells.
Something smells like chicken. Yeah, so that was one of my things. I also, while I had the soldering iron out, I built a little 20-meter infrared half wave. One really cool thing, and I'll talk about this a little bit when we're talking with Aaron here, but I have this friend Mike, KE8PTX. I'm not sure if he's a listener to the show or not. I think he may be. Mike's like one of the most awesome people ever. He is just such a nice guy, and he is like a mad scientist with 3D printing. He's a designer by trade, and he designs everything. You were talking about it earlier, Aaron, about how like you get something like, how is that done? How could I improve this? What could I do? Mike, he buys something and then he starts making like a bazillion accessories for it with a 3D printer just really quickly. And he's so kind. He just sends me stuff he makes. He doesn't sell anything. He does give it to other people just to sell, just to do it if they want to. He'll give them the designs and he publishes them. And he started playing with this like rubbery PLA, or not PLA, but
TPU. TPU.
Yes. Yeah. And he's been playing with this rubbery filament and making things with it. And boy, this stuff's really useful and kind of fun. I bet you know a thing or two about it, don't you, Aaron?
Yeah, well, it's hard to print with. That's for sure.
Is it?
Yeah, because especially because you're with filament, the whole idea is that you're trying to squeeze it through, a hot end essentially, right? So if it's a flexible material, it's really hard to push a wet noodle, and that's what you're doing with TPU. So, and
Wow.
yeah, it's a little bit. So I'm impressed that actually when you held it up on the screen, it looks like it had pretty good build quality with it. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, he made some stuff that had beautiful build quality, including some rings made with this that you can put on a telescoping pole and slide down the pole to make places to hold line if you want to, like your radiator or something like that. And it was very precision made. It looked really, really good and pretty thin but strong. And he even has like texturized coatings he puts on it and all kinds of stuff. He's always making things. He's made so many really cool accessories for the AX3, and including that's the kind of standalone antenna that Elecraft made. He made a little clamp that you can put on a picnic table with it. He just sent me a magnetic base for it that you just screw the AX3 on top of, and you can throw it on your car like a little mag mount. What else has he made? He just makes stuff all the time, and he's just a really cool designer, really nice guy. And yeah, so the only other thing, kind of a weird thing that I've been doing lately is I've been interviewed for a bunch of things. And yesterday I was interviewed by the BBC World Service for about 2 hours. Yeah, it's about international broadcasting and shortwave radio. It's something I've been in touch with this reporter. She'd approached me probably 4 weeks ago or something. And so that's going to turn into a thing, I think. It's not all about me. It's about international broadcasting and shortwave radio, but it's been awfully fun to talk about it. Because as you were saying earlier, George, one of the things I always say about shortwave broadcasting and the shortwaves in general, HF in general, is if it had been invented, if we had just discovered the HF bands like 5 years ago, we would be thinking of every possible way we could leverage this like global medium, this global way that we can communicate,
Mm-hmm.
Don't you agree? Like,
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you mean you can communicate from here to there with nothing in between?
Yeah.
That's
no
phenomenal.
satellites. What?
Yeah. Just think of the applications.
I know. I mean, you think about it, and like you could literally be at the South Pole station, take a $20 radio outside, if it's warm enough, and you'll hear broadcasters on that thing.
Wait a minute, Thomas. You've never owned a $20 radio.
Yes, I have. Oh. I have. I have to do it for like research purposes. I'm not saying that I keep them. I put them in like a good $300 pack.
Oh, okay,
George. So.
That makes more sense to me now.
Yeah. And so it's been fun. It's been kind of fun talking about that. And there've been some really interesting things happening because, of course, with the US invading Iran and everything, there's like a number station has popped up in Persian. And that's something, you don't hear a lot of number stations anymore. When we were young in the Cold War days, you used to hear them all over the bands. And now, like, you're hearing a lot of activity on HF. Shortwave broadcasters have started up again that had not had programming out on shortwave in a while. And people kind of always default back to the HF bands, because anyway, it's kind of an interesting topic whenever the world's going crazy. HF radio tends to be like this place where people know they can get a message through. So yeah, but that's pretty much what's on my workbench these days.
Okay, very good. Paul, how about you? What's on the bench?
All right. Well, first off, this is where I am. Well, this is a tiny representation of where I am.
I was going to say, you're massive.
That's a thing I have. Every time I go on one of these, I try to find the itty-bitty version of the ship to bring home, so I have a nice collection of them. Since I was last on, due to strong encouragement by several members of this team, first off, I'd like to point out that I now am the proud owner.
Yes.
Of this hat.
Look at that. He
Very
looks like
stylish.
a real ham radio operator now.
Okay, what's that thing called? So for the people listening will know.
I now own an official Tilley hat. That one is an LTM2, which has got the really big, it's a much bigger brim. There's different versions of it, but it's one of the airflows that has mesh at the top that lets air blow across the top of your head and keeps it cooler. And it's got, when you learn how to put it on properly, it's got a nice strap that keeps it really tied to your head in the wind. And so my wife said it definitely makes me look like a tourist, so that's just a thing I'm okay with. But am I okay? Am I back? I think
yeah, you're doing fine. And so, I got to say, Paul, that
this is the first time we've officially.
I've got to say that the Tilley hats, I think, are such an amazing hat, and I use them all the time. Like if people are watching my videos, anytime it's in the summer, I've probably got a Tilley hat on because I like the wide brim. And like when you're operating, it's nice to like have just a little tiny bit of shade around your, like, I mean, some of these brims are really wide, but you have like a little bit of shade there around your radio. You can like see your display and that sort of thing, but also not just get pounded by the sun while you're outside. And I'm fair skinned, so I have to really watch that stuff.
Yeah. So I have to thank, I think you were the one who really suggested that in the Christmas shopping episode, and so I hopped on and I now have joined the fancy hat brigade. So another thing that I acquired since then, this was strongly encouraged by a few of you, Vince, particularly. I have now entered the deep rabbit hole of 3D printing. I wasn't gonna, I couldn't really justify, and then a friend of mine locally, I gave him some stuff to print. He goes, I don't really have a lot of time. He said, you want to buy a printer? So he made me an offer, and I am now the proud owner of a Bamboo P1S, and so I've gone down the deep hole of multiple sites where you can just download stuff. I have not gotten into that point where I start drawing my own things, but one of the first things I made was I needed some travel cases for the stuff I'm taking with me on this trip, and I looked online to see what sort of boxes or whatever was available, and I found one that is, and this amazes me that you can, what, hang on, I'm going to switch cameras here. We can do this better. Let's see, we do this, and we do this.
Even on a ship, he has a 2-camera setup.
So, there we go. So, it amazes me that this printed, okay, this is awkward. It printed this, the whole thing with hinges and latches and the whole. It took me back to like the early 90s when I burnt my very first CD at home, and that was like voodoo that I could now burn CDs. And so now I've got this magic box in the room. I just send files to it, and it makes stuff. So I found this, and this is the perfect size for my let's see here. That's my CTR, my Lynovation CTR2 quad, and my little travel paddle. And so I needed a container to put the quad in, and so this is the right size for that. And I'm going to switch back now. Okay, so I just put foam in the top and in the bottom to give it a little cushion, make it tighter. When I tuck it in, I have little foam blocks. And it sits nice in my suitcase, and it's nice and protected. So, however, the first one I did, because the page where I found this was dynamic. You could put in the inside dimensions of the box that you needed, and it would generate the right files to make a box that size. I did not see, however, at the very bottom of the page, the little button that said update and save. So the first one I printed came out the default size, which turned out to be way too small for this box. Now, I have since, my wife was a little, at first she saw me carry this thing into the house. She's like, what did you get? I said, we are now the proud owners of a 3D printer. She's like, oh, great. And then I said, well, I could print stuff for you. And she started thinking, and now we're both members of a theater company, and we've been for 40, 50 years. And she's like, oh, wait, I bet we could, instead of having to buy some of the smaller hand props, we could probably make them. And I said, yes, we could. So that started, the spouse acceptance factor started to go up a little higher. And what it turns out, when we were getting ready to pack, because she wears some hearing aids, and a little stand and everything for that, and it's never had a proper travel case for that stuff. Turns out that the first iteration of that box that was too small for my CTR2 was perfect for her. So, another point made. And then on her suitcase, the one little pull tab for the one zipper broke. So while we were packing, so I ran downstairs real quick and I got online and I found a replacement zipper that uses a paper clip and this thing that clips over it. And I printed one while we're doing the suitcases and I brought it back up. I'm like, see? So I believe when I come to that discussion where I need to have an AMS or two, that discussion has become a lot easier now. So I've got that to look forward to. Now, as I just showed you, we've talked about this before, operating remotely from a ship, because our club has, our club and our sister club, between us, we have 3 Flex radios. And they're all tied to the Remote Ham Radio Youth Network. And I've been able to use the RHR client on the previous 2 cruises to spend time while we got days at sea or nothing really downtime. I hop on and I can operate, which is nice. Not on this ship. For whatever reason, Holland America, while they are connected to Starlink, either the way they have it set up or the internal infrastructure on this ship is just horrendous. And my download speed's only 2 megabits and my upload is 1.8 or something. So it's totally useless for doing the RHR. So while you can see everything I've got, I just left it out here so you could see it tonight. I haven't used it all week because I can't. It's a little frustrating, but now so far in my experience, I have actually operated from Norwegian and from Celebrity, and they have full bandwidth. And I've also going to operate in January. I think we're going on a cruise from MSC, and all of my research and reading reviews on their bandwidth, everybody says they're great. They get 17 to 20 to 30. So exactly. That it's just a matter. While it's possible to do, it might not be possible. So this trip has been a total failure for that because, and it's totally out of my control, is the bandwidth throughout the ship over the Wi-Fi is just not usable. In fact, even yes,
Paul, I was going to say, with your 4-second delay and your desire to get on the air with CW, but I think it's fair to say you're still just a little bit nervous about it. So perhaps a 4-second delay at 10 words per minute is not a showstopper for RagJuice, and that's been my recent discovery. So I'll put that thought in your head while you still have time on the ship to give it a try.
Okay. I may give that a shot. We'll see if that works. I got time tomorrow before I really need to pack everything up. So I'll maybe see if I can do something. So, but yeah, so that's the thing. Now, that said, since I've been experimenting along with George, on Allstar on the 55915 hub, which my hotspot at home is permanently tied to, and every once in a while I'll dial our local repeater into it just to get some activity going. I have downloaded, now I'm on a Mac, so I'm not sure what software is available on Windows, but I'm running an app called Transceive, which is a paid app. It's not free, but it was $20, which will, as long as you are registered with Allstar, I've got it tied to 55915. And the other night, George did a demonstration for his local club. And when he was done with that, he got on and he was going to make some contacts on Allstar and show them how it worked. So I was connected to that, and that did work. So the bandwidth for for whatever the amount of information being squeezed out through Allstar worked well enough to use. So I've been able to do a little bit of that. So, but that's way less than the waterfall information that's coming across from a Flex over remote ham radio clients. So, but the one other thing that's semi on my Workbench, but not really, is apparently when I get home, not only is that that Woodman pack or whatever, Thomas, that you convinced me I needed to buy before they went. Yeah, I got one of those waiting for me.
Yay!
Thank you. Yeah, and the thing that will go in that is my QMX kit, which I know this has been an ongoing thing where I had originally planned on just getting one built by QRP Labs, but the build time and everything was really slowing down because Hans was having a lot of supply issues and that. So I had it converted to a kit, which would ship quicker. And some guy I know out in California was goofy enough to say, "Hey, I'll build it for you." So as soon as I get home, I slap another label on the box and ship it out to California. And I will have a QMX to start playing with. And I will have it with me for sure when we all get together at Xenia. So I'm looking forward to that because you guys all love them. Everything I've read, everybody loves them. I want mine to play with. So I also know myself well enough to know that if I left it as a kit and didn't send it to some guy who knows what he's doing, it would sit in my Workbench for 2 years. Because I've watched enough videos on how to make one, and then I've also watched enough videos on how to not make one, and I've realized that the best way to make one is to send it to somebody who's done that. So that's what I'm doing. So that's right now. That's about it.
All right, very good. So Vince, how about you? What's on the bench?
I've been a slacker lately. I've only got 3 things I want to talk about, and for which I'll apologize in advance, being typically Canadian. The first is I was influenced, thank you, Randy, K7AGE, for talking about the Niimbot label printer, Niimbot. So you can look that up. I put a link to it in the show notes. And what this label printer does is it takes away the keyboard and the display from your typical Dymo labeler. And you use an app on your phone to pair to it and to build your label with all of the fanciness that a label can have. It's not just text anymore. It can take an image and digitize it and print it on really nice vinyl labels. Yes, the backing is easy to remove. That's just the bane of our existence with friggin' Dymo labels, right? And I don't want to crap on Dymo, but they're all kind of like that, right? I ditched my really popular Rhino Pro 3000 labeler to buy this one. And as a matter of fact, I just sold off today to somebody else who wants it. But now what I'm doing is this label printer weighs like 6 ounces. And so it's a whole heck of a lot lighter to carry around in a tool bag than a Dymo Rhino Pro, which is like close to 2 pounds. So thank you, Randy, for introducing me to that. The next thing that I've had going on is I have been on the road for work, and And so I have been operating Hotel Portable, but not in my usual fashion. I have been operating Hotel Portable remoted back to my Flex at home. And I've been using, thanks to Paul, he was a bad influence. I bought a Lynovation's controller, a CTR2 Duo, and the Duo fit my needs. Paul's got the quad. I've got a link to both of those on the show notes. And it provides me the ability to have 2 rotary controls and 2 buttons that I can short push or long push, and then the big knob in the middle to operate my radio remotely, in addition to Smart SDR, in my case for Mac, so that I can operate my radio remotely. So first off, I had on hand a SIG lunchbox. These are aluminum lunchboxes. If you've never seen a SIG lunchbox, you should really give yourself a treat and take a look at one of them. They're super lightweight. They're incredibly durable. And thanks to Malin Vidler, VE6 VID, my buddy, who said, oh yeah, that'll fit your KX2, I bought one of each. Spoiler alert, it doesn't fit my KX2. Oh, there's a fun fact about my KX2, which I'll come to in a couple minutes. But I have been able to use it to haul other things around, like the kit that I'm showing on screen for those of you with video. On one side of it, I have my jeweler's block, my Modern Morse paddle, a couple of cables to interface it, and on the other side is the CTR2 Duo. And then when I set it up in the hotel room, I just plug it in all together, and away I go to the races. I have the main knob configured for a VFO dial, although it's easy enough for me to back out of that and use it for PTT if I'm going to do phone mode. So in the evenings, I've been working on my my rag chew skills. So one thing I wanted to do this year in terms of my CW goals is I want to improve my rag chew skills, and I want to get my speed up in doing that. I'm super comfortable at 17 words a minute doing POTA or SOTA exchanges, either as a hunter or an activator. But if somebody sends me something that's outside that exchange, I go, why is he telling me his life story? Which is my way of saying I have no clue what the hell they just said. So that kind of ticks me off. And now what I'm doing is a minimum of 4 nights a week, you will hear me calling out CQ. And I'm calling out currently at 13 words a minute because that's where I'm comfortable. Paul, this is something you can do, even if it's at 10 words a minute. Start somewhere, build your competence up for that decoding so that you can build that speed up later. But at 13 words a minute, I've had some great little short chats, 5 or 10 minutes with people. You don't get to say a lot in that time. But I've traded some emails with some really cool people immediately afterwards and learned more about their rigs. One guy who I worked him 2 nights ago, and he was drifting. And so, silly me, I followed him. Now, I shouldn't have done that. And now, because what I learned through my email exchanges with him was he was running a Collins transmitter, a Collins transmitter and a Heathkit receiver. Maybe I've got those reversed. Anyway, he was running 2 distinct units. He wasn't running a transceiver. Well, of course, the transmitter drifts, but the receiver doesn't. So the poor guy, I kept chasing him up the band, and then he took a minute, and I could hear him tuning, and I'm like, what's he doing? And then a minute later, it kind of clued in. Oh, yes, Vince, stay frequency stable. I widened my filter up from 400 to 2 kilohertz or something, and I just let my ears do the decoding at that point, taking a page from Thomas's book. And anyway, we finished our QSO, and like I say, we traded emails back and forth, and we had a great old time. So I've been working on that. And so this portable setup now means I don't have to carry a radio with me. So I kind of miss that. But what I don't miss is, frankly, and I'm going to use some harsh language here, spending an hour jacking around in my hotel room trying to figure out how the hell I'm going to get an antenna out and get a counterpoise out, and can I actually hear anything that's not FT8? No shame on FT8, like we've heard my position on that before. I want to work some CW. So it's scratching all kinds of itches for me. Having this 6600 at my disposal is great. Thomas?
Oh, let me just say for a second, I get a little tired of the flexing. Okay. Like it's just a little too much on this show right now. And like, I do not need one of them, and you do not need to advertise it anymore from a ship in the middle of the sea or from whatever hotel in Alberta. Just keep it to yourself. Okay. That's
Thomas,
right.
I have a Flex 1500 with your name on it. All I have to do is ship it.
Jealousy is so obvious at this point. Envy is so obvious.
Yeah.
Flexing is what this is.
I don't think we're really going to be done until he buys one.
No.
All this is coming back because poor Paul is like, I've been like saying, Paul, you need to get one of these. And Paul, being like here in the, I wouldn't say new to the family here, but newish to the family. He's like, I think he's like, oh my gosh, I've got to catch up. And so I'm like, I've got to be careful what I suggest that he gets, but like, it's all good stuff, Paul. You're in good hands here. Okay. You're like with professional enablers.
But most of us don't have a filter like that. So you're just going to get it.
But the other thing, Vince, you kind of cruised straight through this, but didn't really.
I don't see a way that I'm going to catch up. So
no, you got time. The thing that you kind of cruised through, Vince, was this Niimbot label printer, because a little chatter was on our group chat a few weeks ago about this thing, and I showed it to my wife, and it's like the only thing that the Ham Radio Workbench crew has talked about that she was like, oh my goodness, this thing is cool, because she is an organizer and labeler. And this thing does like everything. Like you can put QR codes on all your devices in your shack. You can inventory your shack professionally if you want to. And this thing is like insane what you can do with it. And the types of labels, it's just like orders of magnitude better than your regular label writer.
It's sub $100. Like it's inexpensive. Oh, by the way, it's self-contained. There's a battery in it, and charge it with USB-C and connect to it. Yeah, it's insane what it can do.
I think here's like $30 or something, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
right.
Really
yeah, in US dollars, the entry level unit is $30.
So the nerd question is, does it print on heat shrink tubing?
No, it does not. It prints on flat labels. But
okay. And the reason I ask, it's not a crazy question, because with a Dymo labeler, you actually have a cartridge that is heat shrink tubing. So you get white heat shrink and you print black on it so that you can label your cables before you put the connectors on.
Totally.
That's really cool.
And that's what my Rhino Pro did. The reality was what I found the heat shrink was good for was RG58 and RG174 and like just the smaller diameter ones and not any of the cables I commonly used.
Fair enough.
Right.
Well, for me, 90% of the time, the connector's already on it. So that's not a help. But anyway, just curious.
Yeah, totally. So, the Niimbot has been great. My rag chew skills are getting better. So, I'm seeing some positive action with that there. And I'm pretty happy with all of that. So, yeah, it's been kind of slow around here lately. I've been traveling for work for the last few weeks too. So I came in late last night, or should I say early this morning, as we're recording this. It's been great. I've been able to when I'm in a hotel, I've been able to focus and get on the air for 2 or 3 hours. This is me flexing my flex again, and just work some rag chews on whatever band, because my radio is configured into 2 different end-fed random wires, and I just let the internal tuner figure it out, so I can work all of the bands. I just pick the band that's active and go. It's kind of like super convenient, right? So, anyway, that's what's going on with my stuff. George, what about you, man?
I have a small stack of projects in the bench. One thing on the operating side, well, sort of. I picked up the THD75. We talked about that on the last show. And one of the things I've been trying to figure out is what Bluetooth earpiece would work well with the radio. It turns out that Kenwood does not offer one specific to the radio. So I tried Apple AirBuds. I tried SoundSport, Bose, blah, blah, blah. Some work, some don't work. Turns out there's also a Kenwood in-ear mono earbud that supposedly would work with the radio. At least I found some people that said it did. You can only buy them in Japan, so I bought one and it shipped over, and it does pair with the radio, but the little button on the side of the earpiece does not really do PTT, although I think it's supposed to. But the other thing is that the audio is kind of marginal. It sounds very digitized. Now it's Bluetooth, so it's obviously digitized. But when you listen to music on your normal Bluetooth earbuds, it sounds great. So why the narrow, FM audio sounds crummy is kind of a mystery to me. So I'm still in search of a better Bluetooth earbud for this thing.
Thank you for doing this research for me, by the way, George. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll send you all of the ones that don't work. No charge. The other thing I was trying to figure out is how I want to use this with a Shark RF OpenSpot. And I finally have a use for my OpenSpot 4 Pro. So this is the model that has the hardware transcoding built into it. And the D75 does do D-Star. And the Shark RF will transcode from the D-Star codec to a DMR codec or whatever. So that's cool. But it's very cumbersome to do that through the radio, to set either a program memory channel or use the touch tone pad. It's just very finicky and funky. And what I discovered was there's a Shark RF app for your phone. And you can go into the app and you can control which talk group you're connected to through the phone. So the user interface is much, 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 much better than trying to tell the radio what to connect to. So the combination of the radio plus the phone actually works very well. So that's been a big plus. Happy to see that. Other thing, Paul, go ahead.
Okay, so I've got a 4, but it's not the 4 Pro. So there's an app that I should get that will let me do stuff with it in the car much easier. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so look on the App Store for your phone and see if there's a Shark RF app. And if there is, then there you go.
Okay.
And I have an iPhone, so I know it works on that. I don't know if there's an Android version. I think there is. So I'm not sure what you got, but you can check them both out. The other thing I installed
my phone all the way.
Oh, okay. So no problem then. Yeah, the app is actually pretty darn good. The other thing is I installed our Quantar on our Portland Radio Club repeater on 2 meters, well, one of them. And it's up and running on Allstar. So we have that all hooked up. And lately we've been dialed into some of the other repeater systems here in Oregon, specifically one of the repeaters in Salem that runs really good nets daily at 10 in the morning and 7 at night. And the thing that I really became clear listening to these guys on this repeater system, the nets that they run have a purpose. So let's say it's the 10 o'clock in the morning net, they'll have a topic. Like we're going to talk about how does a long wire antenna work? And then the person who's the net control will talk about the topic and then ask questions, and people will chime in. And sometimes they'll ask questions that are on the ham exam. So, and it goes for an hour and then it's over. And the thing that's really, really good about it is there's a point to the net, because a lot of nets that I've heard, elsewhere, they're like check-in nets. The net control says, I'm taking check-ins, and you give your call sign and they're like, okay, got you in the log, and that's it. And then the net's over and it's completely useless. So I don't find that compelling. You'll do that once or twice and you're done. So having a net where there's actually something to talk about and it's well managed makes all the difference in the world. So the guys on this repeater system, the repeater's run by a fellow named Dan, WA7ABU, in the Salem, Oregon area. Just really excellent job. I think they do a fantastic work on that. So for those of you doing nets, do it with a purpose is my advice. And the last thing is we've been working on our iShare Radio product. This is the cloud service that allows you to run a remote radio, specifically a Flex at this point, with multiple clients individually logging in one at a time. You can't do multiple people at once. But anyway, you can have, everybody has their own login credentials. It's very well controlled, administered for a club. And the latest feature that we rolled into it is to talk to our station controller hardware. So now there's a control panel in iShare Radio that lets you monitor voltages and currents and RF power and control relays and all that kind of stuff. And the nice thing about that is that you could either use the Node-RED version that comes with it, the station controller, which comes as source code, or you can use the iShare Radio front end, which prevents users from seeing the guts of the software. So if you're putting up your own station and you want your super user access to the actual Node-RED code, then you go that route. But if you're administering a club station with 100 potential users, you don't want anybody to get inside the software and see how it's set up and change it. So the web version of the control panel for the station controller through iShare Radio does that, and it does it really, really well. So we're making a lot of good progress. All that software is in beta. We're on track to be in production before Hamvention. So we're actually very excited about that. So far, so good. And that's kind of it. So with that, what we're going to do is take a break. When we come back, Aaron's going to talk all about his Morse code keys and how he designs and builds them, and probably some other CW related stuff. So with that, we will be right back. Okay, Vince, here we go. 5, 4.
Well, Aaron, we are tickled pink that you're here on the show, and me especially. And so somebody came and grabbed me at 2025 Hamvention and said, "Hey, Vince, you got to come over here and see these paddles." And you were right across the road from DX Engineering, and the story of how we met. And I think that was Josh. I can't quite remember what the Josh is. He's got a YouTube channel. Well, so I took one look at these paddles and I went, "I'll be right back. I got to go get my wallet." And I sprinted through building 1, building 2, over to building 3 where my wallet was. And Thomas is there. And I'm like, "Thomas, dude, grab your wallet. Come with me." And Paul said, "Oh, this sounds good." Paul grabbed his wallet and he came along. And at least 2 of us bought paddles. And I still use that paddle today, as you saw in my hotel kit recently.
I had been so careful. I had been so careful at Hamvention with my spending last year. I mean, I really had. I was proud of myself. And then Vince does this. I look at the paddles. I'm like, yeah, I should just get one of these. And I grabbed one without hesitation.
Well, and then so then Aaron, you and I were on a live stream together, and I think it was Ham Radio Kids Table, and we're chatting in the after chat as we all tend to do after we've done a recording. And I said, "Well, yeah, you know what? My KX3 is up for sale. I'm thinking of a KX2. And, I'm looking for a guy to swap." And he says, "Well, I got a KX2. I'll swap with you." So,
Yeah.
Aaron and I did a deal. And, he was happy. I was happy. But the funny thing was when I shipped the radio down to him, I said, "I'm not going to ship you a mic. Just keep your mic that's pictured. And that way we don't have to spend the money on the extra weight of the microphone because it's a standard Elecraft MH3 hand mic." Well, I get the radio and I look at it and I go, "Wait a minute, he shipped the mic and I didn't ship him one." So now I'm feeling a little like the deal is unbalanced. So I sent him a note, "Dude, like I didn't send you a mic. Like I owe you for a mic." He goes, "Oh, hell no, Vince. I never use a mic. I'm a CW guy."
I didn't need it.
And so, that's these are great illustrative stories, at least in my mind about Aaron. So, hey, Aaron, before I turn this back over to George, tell us about Modern Morse.
Oh, about Modern Morse, as the company as a whole, like how we got started.
Yeah.
I kind of think I kind of touched on it before. I already had the machine shop and I was doing job shop contract manufacturing work and I wanted to make my own key. So I started going down the route of designing my own key. And I'll tell you, I was designing a key for me, right? I wanted to make one. I make all sorts of stuff, just one-of stuff for myself, right? That's just what I do. When you have toys like this, that's what you do, right? So like, I guess how does it go when all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, right?
Right.
So when all you have is a Haas VF3, everything looks like a piece of billet ready to be cut, right? So, so I went down the route of designing my own key, something that I wanted, and then I sent a picture to a friend of mine, and they were like, "I'll buy one." And I'm like, "You don't even know CW," and they're like, "I don't think you understand that I like EDC stuff, and if it fits in my pocket, I'm going to buy one." So he bought one. I made him one, and then I somehow things trickled out. I think I was at Huntsville 3 years ago, and I was sitting in a booth, and my friend Matt came over, AE0 I'm now forgetting his call sign. It's Matt Quince, so it'd be an MQ. Yep, that's it, A0MQ. He literally saw. I just had a prototype. I just had parts in a box. I didn't even bring a finished key because I didn't have any finished keys with me. I just had raw machined parts in a box to show some of my friends that were going to be there. Like, hey, look at this new project I'm working on. Right, it's on my workbench, and he was like grabbing people from around the show and bringing them over to me and being like, show them the parts. And I was like, okay, this is kind of what I'm working on. And everyone's like, dude, you're onto something. Keep working on it. Send me a prototype when you got one ready. And so then I shared one of those with, I think one of my first actual customers was Mike. And I sent him one, and he just became my best marketing manager ever without, no pay. So thanks, Mike. And N8YO. And he just was showing that off to everybody. And suddenly I'm getting random emails from people that I don't even know that are just like introducing themselves, being like, I'm a CW operator, da 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 da. I've been doing this for 20 years. I want to buy one of your keys. And I was like, this wasn't even supposed to be a business. I didn't even have the name picked out. It was just a key. That's why we call it the nameless, because I couldn't pick a name. It's like having a 3-month-old. You still haven't decided what you're going to call him, right? Like I was like, we're just going to call it the nameless. I actually had a code name for it. All the CAD models, they all say Skookum on the CAD models, like Skookum version 1, 2, and 3. And that when I was in the Army and I was up in Fort Irwin, all the Porta-Johns had the like Skookum Indium on it. So we always said random things that you have. We're just like, oh, that's Skookum, right? Like it's like a widget, right? It's just a name that you used. And so I like my secret code name I had for the project called Skookum. So anyway, it's a little bit of inside baseball there for you. So I suddenly had to start ramping up, and I had a wait list of people. And so I was making these things literally one at a time. It took me a week to make each one just because I was making each part individually, having to change out fixturing on the machine and trying to fit things in with my normal production schedule, because I was doing full-fledged production for several other companies and making parts for them, doing contract manufacturing. And then it just started to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we said, okay, we're going to have a booth at Hamvention. And so we had a booth at Hamvention. And I brought 20 assembled keys and figured I'd sell 10. And I brought enough to build like another 40 worth of parts because I'm a pack rat. And I just boxed everything that I had off my assembly table and took it to Hamvention. And we sold all 20 keys within like 15 minutes on Friday. And so then I sat in the booth, panic assembling other keys as people were coming by, trying to get stuff ready for them. So it's just been one of those things where I never realized I'd have more than 10 customers, and I have over 700 keys in the field now. So that's
wild,
mind-boggling. So
that's the thing, though. This is the thing about keys. Keys are quite different than a lot of other accessories and things that a lot of other gear that people use in the world of ham radio, like quite different than a mic, right? So like a lot of us, like if we're searching for a mic, we eventually find like the one, that we love, and we kind of stick with it. And we may have like a contesting version, and maybe we have different elements we put out or whatever. Maybe we have a boom set, and then we have like a home set or whatever, but we usually get that and we stick with it. But keys, I don't know of a Morse code operator that doesn't want like a bazillion keys. And so it's almost like a field that no matter, I mean, when you were talking at first about Larry, and by the way, the fact that Larry N0SA is so close by you, I mean, like he is just an amazing key maker, right? Like I love everything he produces. And so it's so brilliant and he's such a nice guy. It's so great that, he could kind of mentor you a bit as you were trying to get into keys. And there's no better person to like kind of walk you through all that and share experience. But like, it's not even like you'd be competing with him or competing with Bagali or competing with anybody, because I don't think anybody in the key business is really competitor, because unless you've just got like a product that's not effective and people aren't buying it, like it's just not a good design or something. So there are people that produce things that are not great designs and they don't get a lot of customers. But like otherwise, people are going to buy your key, even if they've got the Bagali and the Vibraplex and all the other, I mean, just because people collect keys.
Yeah, I always joke that it's kind of like Pokemon. You got to catch them all, right?
Yeah, you do.
So
You
I mean,
do.
it's one of those things. And now that I make them in all different color combinations because like that was important to me because I consider myself more of an artist than an engineer half the time. Like part of my brain, I'm left-handed, and I was like, I want to be able to express myself, and so that's one of the reasons why I went with Cerakoting was so I could have such a broad range of colors that you have with a durable coating in it instead of anodizing. Also, because a lot of the anodizers in the area, there's only two companies here near St. Louis, and they're like, we'll anodize it any color you want as long as it's black. And I'm like, got it. So I was like, all right, well, we're gonna go with Cerakote because I was familiar with the coating process from a previous contract job that I'd done. So but there was a learning curve with that too. That stuff's not easy to apply at all. So but yeah, my relationship with Larry has been absolutely fantastic to your point. And in fact, he comes by the shop and like helps me assemble keys sometimes. So some of you I might actually have a key assembled by Larry. So, but we'll sit in the conference room and just chat for several hours, and we go out to lunch afterwards, and it's kind of fun because at the beginning it's been kind of a two-way street from an engineering standpoint because if you'll notice on his when we first started going, he actually critiqued me on my first design. He said, I don't like jacks in the cables, right? He's like, I want to have a wire that plugs in, right? Or not, he's like, it's having an external wire is something extra. He's like, hardwiring it easier to manufacture. And I was like, yeah, but you can, if you break one of those wires out in the field, you can just go to any truck stop and get another aux cable and you're off and running again if you're on a trip. And he took that to heart. And then he was at Ozark Con. He started asking some people, what do you guys think? And they were like, hardwired cables out. Jacks, you need to have a jack in it. And then all of a sudden you'll notice that his next two keys he came out with had jacks in it because he said, hey, what part number you use? And I said, use this one. And it goes on the PCB and like that's what you need to use. And so it's been fun like seeing the feedback go both ways with us.
Yep.
And then like I introduced him the first key that I made for him, the finger pieces I was experimenting with instead of aluminum finger pieces, I was going with a material called micarta. So I have probably 20 or 30 keys out in the wild that have micarta finger pieces. And that's a linen like composite, kind of like G10, but instead of fiberglass, it's like it's a linen material for the substrate. And he absolutely loved that. In fact, he was like, it was at field day. I delivered the key to him at field day. He comes back on Sunday, a field day, and he's already modified the finger pieces to make them smaller because that's how he liked them. And I was like, I absolutely love this. This is fantastic. So, oh, Paul, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Thomas. From what I can tell, I've watched a lot of your videos, and I think if I haven't lost count, you've got like 57 different radios, and I think you've got a different key for each one. So you're right. There's actually kind of an unlimited market.
I really love supporting. I think a lot of other people. I like supporting people who are making cool things in the amateur radio world. And the really cool thing about the amateur radio world is we have a lot of little manufacturers, a lot of cottage industry manufacturers. And I think it makes it a much more interesting market. So yeah, and I do kind of like having enough keys that they can be in independent field kits for different radios I have. And 57 may be exaggeration. I don't know. I won't say it out loud.
Yeah, you don't want to say the number too loud, do you?
I do not.
So, Aaron, for people who are listening and they haven't seen your keys before, let's take a step back and describe what kind of paddles do you make?
So I make iambic paddles. So instead of like a single lever, it's a dual lever paddle. It's all made out of billet aluminum. It's about I could get you the exact dimensions, but it's about inch and 3/4 wide by about 3 inches long. And I designed it so it fit in your hand. It's meant to be a two-handed operated key. I built like nice curves with ridges on the sides of them, kind of like an hourglass shape. That was because in the design process, I wanted something that like my thumb fit perfectly into. And I went through probably 40 3D prints where I was changing the radius until I got one that fit exactly the way my thumb works. So that's like I said, I was designing the first one just for me. And it's got a clear clear top on it. That was actually not even my idea. That was N8YO's idea. He's like, because the first one I had a solid metal top, and he's like, if you could put a window in there, that'd be fantastic, because then you can see all the cool inner workings of what's going on. And I'm like, and that was actually a feat of trying to figure out how to do that. But we did it, and I was able to do it all in house because I have I make it out of. Some of them are acrylic, some of them are polycarbonate, slightly different material. I was experimenting throughout different phases of making these. The acrylic actually works better because it's a press fit design. So I leave little tiny sharp tabs in the laser cutting process. So when it presses in, it kind of actually crushes the acrylic on the sides and kind of like presses itself in. I'm actually changing that soon, but that's later on. That's another rat hole. Or rabbit hole, whatever you want to say. Yeah, and so the whole thing's made out of billet 6061. You could say aircraft grade aluminum, but that's kind of within the machinist world, we always joke calling things aircraft grade. So because it's like, well, it's key grade. So I use all stainless steel hardware. I had experimented with using some brass hardware. But brass does oxidize faster than stainless steel does. And it's got a different hit pattern to it as well. I mean, Thomas, you've probably noticed on some keys when you're hitting them, like some of them have kind of a soft land, like when it actually hits on the contacts, it feels a little soft and so for me, I went with all stainless steel because it had that really defined, like I've now made contact, right?
Yeah, like a more mechanical feedback you get from it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I equate a lot of, when you're talking about different keys, not everyone's going to like, not everyone's going to like the Modern Morse key. They might like a different style, right? Because that's what they want. And there's no offense taken. I'm always like, cool, yeah, like go find the one that works for you and gets you on the air. That's what I care about, right?
So I think that the thing that really distinguishes it for me, when I think about a paddle, I think about a big heavy base to put on your desk with the the paddles on top of it. And these are really not that. They're really I would say optimized more for portable operating. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that was what it was designed for. I wanted something that you could just throw in your backpack and not worry about, and just like you don't need a case for it. You can just put it in there and it'll work. And people have made cases for them, so I think that's kind of cool too because they want to protect their investment. So that's neat. I didn't actually the magnets on the bottom. This is what's great about this is that it's evolved. The magnets that I had on the bottom were that was a feature I added for storage because I was actually watching one of Thomas's videos years ago. And one of the feedback that you gave when you were like talking about a key was you're like, I like the fact that it has magnets on the bottom because I can just click it on the radio. I don't got to worry about where it goes. Right. And I was like, oh, I'll add magnets on the bottom of my key, not realizing that the actual feature there so that you can mount it onto something and then not have it move.
Yes.
So I had to go back and upgrade the magnets that I was using. I had to go to the highest grade neodymium magnets I could get. And so they're N52s. I think N52SH is the grade. I think it's SH. Even then, the other problem that I ran into with the design is that I'm Cerakoting these, which is a thin film ceramic coating, which is designed to be have some lubricity to it. It's meant to slide, right? And so I made something that's meant to slide around, and then people go and they buy a polished steel block, chromed block, and so they put two things that are mirror smooth against each other, and then they're like, yeah, but now the key wiggles around on the base.
You mean like the one that I was using in the hotel?
Oh, absolutely.
And so what I landed up doing, so last week when I traveled, I noticed that I had to put my hand over the key to stop it from sliding around on top of my jeweler's block, which, I've talked about before I got it off Amazon, a nice shiny surface with a rubber bottom to it. And this time I brought my iFixit.com toolkit with me, which gives me some really nice precise screwdrivers, like the little nut driver I needed to set the set screws up on the paddle. And I set that thing as tight as I could make it to make my touch very light. And now it doesn't slide around on the paddle at all.
So my hack with it, and I think I credit Mike KE8 PTX with this as well. We were both talking about this once about like, how do you keep it from sliding, And we found that just like painter's tape, like if you just put it across your jeweler's block or whatever, it holds it really still then. It adds enough friction or whatever that it still is strong enough that it holds nicely, and that's worked pretty well for me.
What I've suggested to people, because I was trying to think of a household item that you could just probably easily get to, and I actually made an Instagram video. I'm not on YouTube that much, but I have an Instagram account, and I've for any of the listeners, if you go, it's Aaron Makes Keys. And if you scroll down, you'll actually see videos of me frustrated as I'm designing the key, because I was recording and trying to document the whole process, which to George's point kind of like helps tell a story about what the maker's doing, right? But I released a video on there where if you just take a nitrile glove or a latex glove and you just cut a little rectangle piece the same size as the base of the key, and then you drop that underneath it, you can literally now pick up, because it adds a little bit of suction. You can just pick the key up with the base. It's not going anywhere.
Wow.
You can have probably 15, 20 pounds of sideways force. So if Vince, if you want to try that, try a little piece of like nitrile glove, or if you because we have a slightly older audience sometimes, like there's a gentleman that said he uses TheraBand material, like like the physical therapy material, because that's already very, very flat. And he's like, oh, I just get boxes of it from a physical therapist. So he's like cutting out little squares to give them out to his friends. So yeah, so that works really well.
Do you make a weighted base to set the key on?
Now you're getting into something that's coming up for Handvention. Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. Because this is so funny to me. Like I have several magnetic mounted keys, and at some point I bought a weighted base that was black, like crinkle painted. And then I thought, oh man, I need another one of those. And I went to one of the key vendors, and like, I bought it from you before. I want another one. Like, we don't make that. It turns out there's not a whole lot of people that make them. You'd think it's a chunk of metal with some rubber feet. It's not like the artistry of making a key. So if you didn't have one, I would highly recommend that you have one to go along with the key. But it sounds like you're in the hunt already.
And we have two things. Part of that is so there's different levels of portable operating, right? There's like what I call the out of the trunk operating, where you're probably not going more than 20 feet to a picnic bench. And so carrying a 2-pound block of steel with you is probably not a big deal. If you're trying to backpack, well, ounces matter at that point, but I'd still like to be able to have it where you have some sort of base that you can use. So I have a billet aluminum block that will have pockets in it that you can stick like tungsten carbide, like slugs into to change the weight on it. And what I'm trying to do is actually...
Is that like a gaming mouse kind of an idea?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
So you can change the weight based off what you want. You'll be able to change out the feet, and it will also have little magnets in it, because sometimes people want to like stick it on a clipboard, but they want a larger base. And that was some of the feedback I was going to ask you guys, though, which is I've been playing around with the height of how high off the table is. Do you want the paddles to be? Like, what's the ideal height? Like,
with the base?
With the base, yeah.
I mean, to be honest, like it really, it's operator, those are operator choices. I would say that like the same thickness as or a height of the key, if you had a base that was like probably 70% that, it would be good, up to 100%. So like up to about doubling the height would be nice, which is kind of where a jeweler's block is, that I'm used to using. Some people like their keys up really high, but not normally with a portable key. Normally with a portable key, you make some allowances with that, unlike like something you're using in the shack for armchair stuff.
So I'm looking at the paddle on my desk, and when I put my fingers on the paddle, from the middle of my thumb to the desk is probably a good inch. Or so, maybe a little bit more than an inch. And I know your paddles are pretty short. So I think that's an interesting challenge, because for portability, if you're holding the paddle with your left hand and keying with your right, for example, then the thickness doesn't matter, right? But if it's sitting on the desk, you don't want it too low, because then it's just inconvenient. Yeah. So I think you probably want a good half inch at least.
See, now I've never done it holding the paddle. I mean, I've always, because we've talked about this before, my favorite paddle, the one I grew up with, is that Brown Brothers BTLA, which Aaron is ones from St. Louis.
Yep.
Back in the 60s and 70s. And the paddles on that, if I rest my hand on the desk, my thumb hits right in the middle. So that I would say that's a good 1.5 inches up. And this little cheap one here I have with me here, the paddle height sitting on this steel block, the paddles, my thumb hits right there. So that's probably 1.5 inches to the center of that paddle. So that's what fits my hand. But now I've watched Thomas and Vince do the thing where they hold the paddle in one hand and they key with the other, and I've never tried that. It doesn't look comfortable to me, but maybe once I try that in the field, that might be different. But it's like you were saying, Aaron, I've got a second Brown Brothers in a travel case that I will use for when I just pull up to a picnic shelter and I'm just walking 10 feet from the car. I've got my favorite paddle with me. And I'm not worried about, like George clipping off the tags on his shirt to save a quarter of an ounce on a hike.
Pulling the fillings out of his teeth.
Yeah. So for me but when I want to do something a little bit more portable, something small and lighter, but I think want it down on a table. So that's, at least for my hand, that's where I'm seeing it.
Yeah, and I would say that normally for field portable operating, we're way more forgiving with that. You just want the height to be comfortable enough. Like I said, the jeweler's block I use is probably, I don't know, 1/2 inch or something off, and that's almost enough. You just need enough that you've got some clearance that you can hit it really easily and move with it and keep the key stable. That's all.
So I've got my jeweler's block out that I've been traveling with, and it is 19 millimeters thick. For those of you who only speak American, that's 3/4 of an inch.
Yeah.
And so that puts the top of the paddle at 35 millimeters off the surface.
Perfect. Good height. That's a good height.
So, 35 millimeters, a little like 1.5 inches to the tip of the paddles themselves. Mm-hmm. And what I find is my hand will sit on the surface of the desk, and for those of you on the video now, I'm demonstrating this, but my hand will sit on the surface of the desk, and my hand doesn't have to sit flat to activate the paddles. My hand can sit with a comfortable curl in it. It mimics what I do with my Big Alley Traveler that's sitting on my desk at home. It's at the right height. So there's my considered opinion.
Yeah, and a lot of times too, when you're in the field and you're on an uneven surface, if the paddles are like right down flush almost with the tabletop, sometimes the tabletop actually touches the bottom of the paddles because it's uneven or whatever. So just getting just enough height on there to make it comfortable works. And I got to add one more thing. You were saying people like to make cases and stuff for it. So this material, this rubberized material, that's a filament that you can put in your printer. I can't think of what it's called, Aaron.
TPU.
So Mike was making this, and they're actually, probably Joshua N5FY with Tufton is going to make, I don't know, 80 or so of these and take them to 4 days in May this year. But he made a case for your paddle that's kind of cool, and it fits in there.
That's
so it's got a case with a lid on it.
Oh, it's a key cozy.
Yeah, it's a key cozy. And it's all texturized. I don't know if you can see this, listeners.
Oh, yeah.
I'll try to push it up closer to the microphone so those of you listening can see it. But he did a really good job with the texturing and everything. And it hangs on really nicely. He's got like kind of venting at the back where the port goes in, where your cable goes in the back of it. So it's actually pretty easy after you do it one time. It's really easy to pull the key out, but it's got enough friction to really hold it in there. And then you can key and hold it, and it's got even more tactile grip if you really want that. I don't know that that's really necessary, but it's kind of a neat feature if people want just like slightly thicker or just like the feel of that texture, they can do that.
Thomas, at the speed that you send it, aren't you worried about heat dissipation if that's an enclosed space?
Yeah, my speed's nowhere near that. But it's really, I mean, I've got to say, I think, Aaron, it is a really good thing to put that little clear top on it. And it sounds strange, but like when you're fascinated with keys and you're fascinated with the mechanics of it, which people who are paying a premium for a portable paddle, right? They want to see that stuff. Like that's one of the things I love about my Bama Key TP3. And I think a lot of other people like too. It has a clear top on it, a different design, completely different design, but a really clear top. And, unfortunately, that key maker, he's in Germany. He passed away last year. He made really wonderful keys, really, really beautifully machined, really nice keys as well. But I love looking through the top of it, and so that's a really good feature of your key. And I do like how you did the grip on it. I think it's really nice. I like the paddles or the finger pieces and how far they stick out. It does make it really good for hand keying, because I do a lot of hand keying where I'm just holding the key, and even though I'm logging with my right hand on paper, usually I'm just like pen on paper sort of thing, I don't mind picking it up and then using the key and then setting it back down or whatever.
One of the things I wanted to mention about the design that really stood out to me, besides the mechanical design, and I totally agree with the transparent lid 100%, what really struck me were the colors. Because for people who haven't seen the keys, the body of the key and then the paddle elements inside the key are or can be different colors. And the colors that you offered, there's quite a mix of colors that I personally would never have thought of. If you said, okay, what color do you want? Pick a color. I never in a million years would have picked the color combinations you picked, but they're all very striking. And the biggest problem I had in looking at which paddle I wanted to get was like, I like them all. I mean, they're all really cool color combinations. And you actually, maybe you've accidentally made a collector's item thing where it's like, yeah, I want the green ones, but ooh, that cherry, red one with the black is pretty, it's like.
I've had that happen. I have one guy that's bought 7 keys for me. Whenever I come out with a different color combo that he likes, he's like, I must have that.
It's like printing money.
It's funny because like some of them, there's one that's like orange with green and green with orange. It's like I never would have, not a chance would I have suggested those colors. But you look at the key, it's like, that's really good looking key. And like Vince's green one, is yours green? It's like a yellow green.
It's like a lemon yellow.
Yeah, yeah. That's. And what's the interior color?
And the top is black. And the interior color is yellow. Yeah, okay. It's very attractive. And had I seen all the choices, I probably would have picked something else. But I looked at this thing and I went, "Oh, that's sexy. I like it."
Yeah, I'm not sure which it was.
I'm never going to lose it in the field. Like if I drop it on the grass, I can see it.
Yeah. I forget which one it was, Aaron. When you came by our booth at Hamvention, you had one with you, and I think it was green and something. It's like, that's a really good looking key. And then unfortunately, I looked at the website and it's like, oh shoot, there's 6 other combinations. I don't know which one I want. So, are there certain color combinations that are the most popular?
Right now, it's the orange, the orange body and top, and then the like the graphite black inside. That's been very, very popular. It's kind of like, it's called Tequila Sunrise is the official Cerakote color. So that's been very popular. The other one, I think the one that I've made the most of is got to be the orange. And I don't want to say that that's because it's popular. It's also just because I've been throttling the supply, and that's the one I've been making the most of, right? So and then the green. Yeah, so Cerakote actually makes what they Federal Standard Green or FS Green, which is or as in the Army we call it Harris Green, because all the Harris radios are that color. It's not olive drab. It's like this very unique, like hunter green looking color. And I was like, oh, if it's Harris Green, I gotta make a radio product that looks like it would belong in an Army Humvee, right? So, and then I went with the orange to match that because you've probably seen like military uniforms when they're wearing the camouflage, they usually have subdued patches, right? So like the unit patch will actually, they change the colors on the patch so it's subdued, and they use a different color palette for that. And what's really common is actually like for some of the brighter colors, they'll use this copper orange color for a lot of the text or some of the heraldry on the inside of the patch. And so you get something that looks green, like this olive drab green with this like burnt orange. And so like that's why I picked that color combo, because it kind of reminded me of old BDU Army like subdued patches, and that kind of triggered my brain on that one.
I could go ahead.
Well, I was curious. I was wondering at first, when I first started looking at some of your color combinations, if you ever referenced the color wheel to decide which two combinations to use.
Yes, I have done that before. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's always like kind of it almost always equates when you get something on the opposite end of the color wheel, like from like a blue to an orange, or, some of those things, you end up making a really appealing color combination when you do that.
Complementary colors.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I would.
In looking at these, like the green and orange one, I thought, oh yeah, I really like that one. And then I saw the black body with the dark kind of cherry red interior. I was like, that's a really slick looking color, very subtle. And then I saw the desert tan one. And I was man. So it's like, well, I guess I'm not buying any of them because I can't make up my mind. That's the only problem.
This is the same problem I have, like if I buy Redox gear, like Redox packs, so we can go down just a teeny rabbit hole. Like you're usually investing in a pack that you're going to use, and they have like, I don't know, a color palette of maybe 16 fabric colors. And you're looking at like, I kind of like the yellow, I kind of like the red, I really like the black too. And then I like this. And it's just like, oh, what am I going to do? And because you can't just buy like 100 of them. But with the keys, with time, you could buy a lot.
Yeah.
Just like you're a customer that gets like 7 of them.
What this totally reminded me of, this, the talk about a rat hole. So here where I live, there's a company called Benchmade that makes knives, pocket knives and knives. And you go over to the Benchmade, they have a store at their corporate office. And you go into the store and there's a bazillion knives. And then there's sets of pocket knives they make that you can mix and match the parts. So you can pick like a green anodized case and with a purple button and anyway, and you can kind of customize whatever look you want. And so when I saw the pedals, it's like, that reminds me of the Benchmade knives, because you can like mix. I know you can't completely mix and match, but you have so many different combinations. It was really cool.
I mean, that's so technology is limiting me on that. Right now I use Shopify for the back end for the website. And if I could come up with a way of making a configurator where people could literally build it themselves, I would. If I want to go spend the 3 or 4 weeks to go down that rabbit hole to figure out how to do that, that's 3 or 4 weeks I'm not making keys for people. Yeah. So I'm there's a balance of time there. At some point, when the madness slows down, I will probably do that and then allow that to happen. Plus, like I tell there's a local ham here that he has bought a bunch from me because he just sees the new color and he's like, I gotta have one, I gotta have it. But he's selling the other ones, so he's had like this little black market of when nobody else can get a key. He's like, comes by the shop, oh, can I have that one? I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll sell you that one because it's some random color that I put together. And he'll take that and then I'll be like, ooh, I want a new one, and then he sells that one and just keeps moving on. So even though I haven't actually seen a large used market for these yet. I check eBay, I check a lot of the online sites. I think I've seen like maybe 6 out of all of them that I've ever seen somebody sell. At least online. Other than that, I think they hold their value. So
now the paddles, the actual paddle part, it looks like those are aluminum also.
Yeah.
And you'd mentioned some other material like a fabric sort of material. Are you thinking about different paddle materials, or have you kind of zeroed in on sticking with aluminum?
So the aluminum was what I designed initially, just because that was the material I'm comfortable with machining, right? And I was also trying to balance the arms out, right, based off of the magnets and the pull there, with the weight. However, I would like to have them slightly lighter weight, and the reason why I went with the micarta initially was because I had some guys that were doing kind of like, I don't want to call them polar expeditions, but folks that are like up Vince's way, right, where they're trying to operate out in the cold, and they're like, well, my fingers my fingers are sticking to the keys. And I was like, well, let me come up with a different like composite material. And that's where I found micarta, because I'm a big knife guy myself, since you mentioned Benchmade. And micarta is a material that gets used for like knife scales for like the handles. So there's a huge aftermarket of other makers, a whole nother cottage industry that I can tap into, and they make all sorts of colors and patterns. And so I can basically buy like sheets of that and then machine out new finger pieces for them. And I have 4 different colors of these micarta finger pieces, and I've machined them all out. I just have to do the final packaging and then take some pictures, product pictures, and I'll put those up on the website. And they won't be an arm and a leg, right? They'll just be 2 finger piece prices. And that way, if somebody wants to have that, they can. In fact, the point of pride on that is that I had 2 friends going to Bouvet Island. They're both CW operators. And once I found out they're going to Bouvet Island, I said, can I make you a custom key to take to Bouvet Island with you?
Oh, nice.
And they were like, oh, absolutely. And so one of them didn't know. Only the first guy knew. Only Max knew. And so I made 2 keys, and I made it the orange, and I engraved in the back their call sign, and then the Bouvet Island. And for the serial number, I actually put Bouvet number 1 and Bouvet number 2 on it. And
nice.
they have sent me some pictures back. I can't share them yet because they're right now with that expedition. They're really like locked down on what social media gets out. But I have pictures of them using. In one case, they were using the key to talk on one of the CW satellites while they were on the ship on the transit down there. So I'm getting all sorts of cool little media from that. So I'm really happy. Like that was. Like, of all the things I've done in my life, the fact that I made something and it made it to Bouvet Island, like that's fantastic. Like I'm tickled pink by that.
That's very cool.
Now, a question I have for you, Aaron, is like you've talked a lot about the engineering and everything, but like on the business side of things, do you have people that help you like manage when you get orders or when you go to not trade shows, but like you go to Hamfest or Hamvention or Huntsville or whatever? You obviously have, what's the guy's name that kind of does your marketing for you?
Well, so Evan was helping me with customer service, but when it comes to the marketing, it's just me. I mean, okay, well, I have some YouTubers involved, unless you have somebody in mind.
No, well, when I went to Hamvention, so 2 years ago, I think, so before you had a table, but you were there at Hamvention. This guy was like going around and he's like, oh, you got to come see this.
That's Daniel. That's Daniel.
Yeah.
Whiskey Victor like, 5 Golf. He looked like a giant, right? Yeah. I mean, it looked like the Jolly Green Giant walking around.
Yeah, I said Aaron. That's what I meant. I meant Daniel. Yeah, the big tall dude.
Yeah, the brute. Yeah, the biggest, softest brute you've ever met. And he's just a really good friend of mine. And just probably one of the best supporters you could have. And he literally he was like, this is fantastic. And he was walking around doing like guerrilla marketing because he looks like a gorilla. I mean,
he did it really really effectively, actually. But yeah, I didn't know if like he works with you all the time, or like it sounds like you kind of run it yourself for the most part, and you have Evan that works with you.
Yeah, so I brought Evan on early on once, right before Hamvention last year, once I knew I was actually selling these commercially, because I was getting inundated with emails. Yeah. And Evan does for a living does customer service and sales. And I said, I don't know how to answer these emails. And I'm spending all day answering emails for these random questions. Not all of them are nicely worded. No. And so sometimes it gets a little, I'm a softie when it comes to that, and I don't know how to respond. So I was like, hey, you're a professional at this. Can I pay you as a contractor to log into this email and respond to these questions? That took a lot of load off of me, but he's so good at what he does that he got promoted as a job and they didn't have enough time for me. So then I had to take over the emails again. So, which is fine. And then I have some local hams that, like I said, like Larry, and then KK0U, Jim Smith. Jim has been like a savior. He basically, I can give him, a bin of parts and say, hey, like sub-assemblies, and say, hey, would you assemble these for me? Because each key probably has 30 minutes of assembly time on it. 30 minutes to an hour. And I'm trying to get that down. I have a bunch of cool automated presses for doing some of the press fit features in it, to try and streamline that. But I have some local, OMs that are like willing to help because they just want to help. So, which has been nice. But when it comes to like in the shop doing all the machining, that's just me. Unless I can sometimes recruit my dad to come in and press the magic green button for me nonstop on the machine some days. So he's trained on all the machines too, so I can get him to do that. But he's also been so busy. He's a full-time engineer. He claims to be retired, but I think he's working more now than he was when he was when he owned Broadcast Electronics. So because he does.
Well, I was just going to say, I think this is like a point about hams can be really demandy sometimes, right? Like they want something and they want like perfect customer service. They want, they have like certain things they want. Some people are that way. There's people like that everywhere. And but when you're working with small companies, people who are doing it on the side, it's like a passion thing that they're doing. Yeah, it's making a little bit of money, but it's really kind of a passion thing. They just enjoy doing it. People like the product and they kind of start making a lot. I think a lot about Larry because Larry does pretty low volume and he's really funny. I'll say this here on the podcast. I don't think he'd mind this at all, but it's really funny because sometimes he'll share like a little like key that he's made or something. And he'll send it to me sometimes to look at as like an early edition of it to give some feedback. And then he'll say, well, you can use it in the video, but like, don't like make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
Because he's like one guy, he's one guy and he doesn't do, he doesn't have a lot of capacity to make tons and tons of keys. And he doesn't want like an onslaught of people coming all of a sudden where he feels uncomfortable. He doesn't have time to make anything because he's answering emails. And that sort of thing. And his keys are so appealing that, a lot of people want to know about him. And he's got his own like little fan club that like whenever he releases something, people are like, oh my gosh, Larry's got a new key. Everybody like contact Larry. I need to get in line for it. And so it's kind of, there's this like area with smaller manufacturers, cottage industries where, there's just not a lot of capacity sometimes to handle all of the orders and everything. And you just have to be patient and understanding.
Okay. That leads us to the topic of availability. So what are you doing to make more keys available for those of us who are waiting to get one?
So, I did change. I'll preface this that I think I made a mistake in how I was delivering keys initially. I went down the same process. Like I'm a knife collector and a lot of knife, makers, they'll make like 10, 15 knives a week, maybe max. Right. And so they will do what they call drop sales. So they'll make a volume of 10, 20, 30 keys. And then they'll say, hey guys, like they'll post it on social media or in an email. They'll say for anybody that's interested, like I'm going to put these live on my website at like 5 p.m. on Friday. Right. And when they're gone, they're gone. And they call that like doing drops, right? You're dropping a whole bunch all at once. So I started doing that. So I would make, essentially I would make a bunch of keys and I would have everything Cerakoted and ready to go, right? But not final assembled. And I'd be like, okay, I've got 15 of these parts put together. All right, I'm going to go list those on the website. And if they sell, I'll assemble them and then ship them. And that has that worked out really well because I would list them at like 5 p.m. on Friday and they would be gone within like 20 minutes. They would all sell out and be gone, right? And then I would spend all weekend replying to emails from the ones that missed out on it, being like, well, when are you going to do it again? I'm like, I don't know. Like I have 6 other professional jobs I got to do, and then I'll machine some more, and then we'll get it going. They were kind of going out like once a month. And then even involved in that, like there have been times where like I had like messed up the inventory on the website and I'd be like, I've got 21 of these and I really only had 18 of parts. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh no. And then I'm having to email that person being like, I don't have that color combo. I'm sorry. Like when I went to assemble them all, like one of them had a blemish on it and I'm not going to do more Cerakote of that color until I have a batch of 20 to do. So it could be 3 months. If you want to wait 3 months, then I'll ship you that key. And so some people have had a delay, and that was probably from a business standpoint. For anyone starting a business, communicate delays as fast as possible up front to the customer. If you don't, they're going to think you took their money and ran, right? No matter how many emails you go back and forth, hey, I'm doing this, hey, I'm doing this, like this is the problem we had. I ran into a problem where I couldn't get the bearings for them for like 3 months. And I was like, oh no, what do I do? And so I feel like I'm missing out on sales. And then very quickly it becomes not fun and it just becomes a job. And so I back off and I go, okay, I'm going to work on some other stuff right now. So, but yeah, like communicate that up front. So now what I did was everyone was asking for a wait list. I had so many emails of people like, just put me on your wait list. Let me know when you have something available. Managing a wait list, like having a spreadsheet. I personally abhor spreadsheets. I spent a good portion of my life being an Excel fanboy, right? And I try to get away from it because that's tribal knowledge that can get lost. It's not easy to back up. You've got to constantly be checking the tracker, what's going on. So if I can get away from spreadsheets, I will. And so I tried to come up with a better process for that. So then I was able to find an add-in that I could put onto the website through Shopify that I'm trying to remember what the name of the add-in is, because Shopify has apps that you can add into the website to do certain automated tasks for you. And this one, I think it was called like Down Pay or something like that, where I could set an initial price. So, it like Shopify captures your credit card information and it only charges you some nominal fee. And I set it to like $15. And now I have your information. I know what color you want, right? I have, everything's captured. And so then as soon as it's built and it's ready to go, I just go on there to be like, oh, I got the black one with green. It's built. Who has a black one with green one that they're waiting on? I hit charge. It charges them the remainder of the balance. And then I print out the shipping label and it goes out the door. So that's what I'm doing right now is I'm basically taking pre-orders and I'm at about a 4 or 5 week lead time right now. So if you put an order in like tonight, right? If you listen to this, you put in an order, it'll probably be 4 weeks before you got a key. Sometimes faster because I'm doing these in batches of usually about 18 because it really comes down to the HRWB in this case, which is from the book The Goal. If anyone wants to get into that, read the book The Goal, which is about finding the long pole in the tent in your production process. And for me right now, I want to be able to do single piece workflow. I would love the ability to basically take raw stock, have it go through the entire process, and at the end of the day, have a finished key, right? And that would be fantastic. But the Cerakote, since it's a 2-part epoxy that has to be mixed together, you have a minimum that you have to put together in there, which means I have a minimum amount of spray time that I have to do. Because right now it's about 18 to 20 keys for the minimum volume that I have to mix together in order to apply that. So I got to have 18 keys ready for all one color to then Cerakote that color combo for whatever it is, whether it's the arms or the chassis or the tops. And so that becomes the long pole in the tent in the manufacturing process there. It's very rare that I'll just Cerakote one key, one color, one time. So that becomes the issue in the manufacturing process for me is with that. And that's what takes the longest delay. So like I don't know for anybody that can see, I'll put that up on the screen. So these are actually all arms that are all treed up and getting ready to get Cerakoted. So I have like 18 there. Those will get Cerakoted tomorrow, and that's actually for the Desert Tan one. So that's those. That's so what those
now,
are done.
Do you do all the coatings yourself?
Quick answer: yes, I do all the coatings myself. Paul, you had a question?
Is Cerakote, is that a liquid, kind of like a paint sort of thing, or is it more like a powder coating?
It is more of a paint. It goes on using like an industrial paint, like a low volume. Or I guess it's high volume, low pressure paint gun. I actually use an Iwata LPH 80 for anyone that wants to know. So, so it's kind of a more complicated airbrush essentially. And so, it has to be cured. So essentially after I apply it, so I take the finished parts, right, off the machine. They have to get ultrasound cleaned, to get all the cutting fluid off of them, and then they go into a tumbler. So I actually chain them all together, and I have a 6 cubic foot tumbler with media, and that kind of just breaks any edges, like sharp edges that might be there. That was actually a process I added after the fact. And then they go to a sandblaster, and I have to sit there and sandblast them all to basically provide like 120 grit etch, because that's what the Cerakote is biting into, to like hold the coating on. Then they actually get, I mix up the Cerakote. It's a 2-part epoxy. It's technically an epoxy, but it gets painted on. And it only goes on a couple of mils thick. And then once they get painted, then they have to then get put into the oven for, sometimes depending on the curing cycle, different colors have different curing cycles. And I haven't figured out the magic there, but usually it's anywhere between 2 to 3 hours in the oven. And I just have a small oven that's built that has a timer on it, so I can only fit like 20 or 30 keys worth of parts in at a time. I'll do that, do all the Cerakoting, and then while they're in the oven, I'm sitting there for another 20 minutes, and I'm having to clean out all the Cerakote from the paint, from all the painting equipment. So half the time, like my afternoons, I figured it out how to. I do all the Cerakote in the afternoons, because when I get done, I basically have to like delouse myself because I have Cerakote everywhere on me.
Oh wow.
And so get rid of all of that. And I know my neighbors, sometimes I'll walk out the back door and I'll be wearing I look like I have to be from episode of Breaking Bad, because I'm wearing like a Tyvek suit. I got a big mask on with respirator, and
you're carrying a briefcase full of cash.
And just carry a briefcase full of cash, right? Yeah, exactly. So I figured out I'm going to do that at the end of the day, so that way I can immediately just switch clothes, go home, take a shower, get it out of my hair, and move on. So yeah, so it is a painting process, but it does have to be cured in the oven. So
and so let me just make a point here, listeners, because I'm often at the other end of people talking about why things cost what they cost. A lot of times amateur radio operators are like, well, I can buy this thing from China that, costs $20, but if I buy this one from this guy, it costs over $200 for this thing. And here's the thing, if you listen to what Aaron's saying, you're talking about a very labor intensive process to make this key, right? In low volume, right? So he's not making thousands at a time or whatever in a big factory. He's doing this out of a smaller factory, and you've got this process of each time you do painting, that you're walking out in a bunny suit and having to detox and everything, and then that's just from the painting process. And but what you end up having is a product that's very, very high quality, and made by somebody that you can get to know and you can see at Hamvention or another place, and it's a completely different thing. And I try to tell people this when they're talking about radio gear and equipment, and they're saying, well, why would I pay such and such for this when I could? And keys are one of those things too. And I get it. When you're new, there are people, who are less price sensitive. And I'd say that we're all probably in that group to some degree with some things, where we're less price sensitive up front. But most people are price sensitive up front when they first get into something, like their very first CW key. They want a key that's maybe less than $50 and maybe 3D printed or something really simple that they can use. And there are some really, really good options out there for that. But I think that a lot of people, as they start to do CW and they want to explore more keys, it's okay to pay a little bit of money to get something that's higher quality, that someone spent time on and a lot of engineering and put a lot of love and passion into, to make something really interesting that you'll probably keep, the rest of your life and pass on to your kids.
I want to pile onto that for a sec. I think when you're brand new, to echo what you're just saying, Thomas, when you're brand new, if you have a $35 3D printed paddle, comparing it to a $300 Bugali, which is probably the cheapest one they make.
Yeah.
Can you really tell the difference? If you've never sent CW in your life, you're probably not going to what's the diff? It's like buying a radio. You could buy a $700 radio or a $7,000 radio. And honestly, for the first year you're a ham, you probably can't tell the difference for the most part. I mean, maybe usability or there's some feature, but mostly it sort of blows by you. After you've done it for a while, then you'll come to appreciate the better made stuff. So I think there's that element of, now you know what you like. Why do you try several different keys? Because they kind of weirdly all feel different, but they only feel different after a while. As a brand new ham, man, they all feel the same. But maybe after 3 months, 6 months, a year, then it's oh, I'm more accurate with this one. I can go a little faster with that one. This one just feels better. The other thing I think for the keys that you make, Aaron, I zeroed in on the color thing, because obviously mechanically they're nice, but I was really kind of blown away by the colors. I know that sounds kind of dumb because it has nothing to do with like using it, but it also feels like more of a bespoke product,
Yeah.
If they're all like black with red paddles and like they're number one or number 10,000 like are all the same, but the color combinations are really cool, and you can kind of pick the one that resonates with you, which is not going to be like your friend's paddle probably.
It's a really good thing to say, yeah.
So that's kind of a different dimension to it. It's not going to make you send any better, but it's kind of like, yeah, my color combo is that one. You kind of resonate with it at a different level.
It is going to make you feel better when you send dit,
which I so often do.
Yeah, you and me both.
I'm a visual creature, so that was one of the things for me, which is I wanted to be able to express having different colors and things like that, and that was something that always a lot of products feel kind of boring sometimes, and so once I decided I was going to do the Cerakote instead of anodizing, then I was like, man, now I have all of these options, and that was just fun for me. So normally, most of the time when you see some of these fun colors out there, like I did like an 80s looking edition that was kind of like a robin's egg with like this pale pink arms, and that was that one actually just that one went gangbusters. Everyone wanted one of those. I might have to do another run of those one of these days. So
I think it's really
get to the
go ahead, Paul.
When I get to the point where I'm comfortable enough doing that in the field and I look at one of these, you have a little bit of time, but I'm going to need one in purple.
you want to place your order now. I'm just telling you, there's a lead time. And yeah, definitely. So I think actually as a small business, you're talking about the long pole in the tent, you're always looking at how can I optimize this so I could spend the same amount of effort and get, 20% more product out the door or whatever, some more margin, et cetera. I think your approach of having a variety of colors is like if the typical business consultant would say, don't do that. Just make it black with red paddles and call it a day. Just make them like optimize for, make the same thing over and over again. Because that's going to give you more economy of scale to some degree. Mm-hmm. However, it also makes you kind of vanilla, right? You're like, no, there's okay, the design may be differentiated, but the look is not. So I keep coming back to the color thing because it really struck me. I don't know if this is a great key or an okay key, but I really love the way they look. So that's a real differentiator, I think. And even though I think it's probably more effort on your part to do that, I think that's a real differentiator.
I think it adds a little bit of soul, and that's part of this was I wanted to do something that was fun for me, right? Call me selfish, but I wanted to do something that was fun for me, and to Paul mentioned the Brown Brothers, which are also from St. Louis, and I actually have a set of Brown Brothers paddles that I inherited from a Silent Key, and I was just kind of floored by the fact that like these are like 35, 40-year-old paddles, and the original makers aren't even around. And then that struck me. I'm only 40 years old, but I'm not going to be here forever, and I'm like, everything that I've made up to this point has always been something for somebody else in a different company. And no one's going to know that one thing that I made for that one airplane was made by me. And so I wanted to have something that would just kind of be out there and just kind of like leave a name for myself that would be kind of fun and last forever. Right. A lot of people are allowed to express themselves in different ways. Like Thomas, you have YouTube, right? That will live forever, right? The heat death of the universe will happen before the YouTube servers finally go down, right? So every piece of content that you've ever made will be there, right? This podcast as well. But for me, I wanted to leave some sort of physical, tangible good that like somebody would see and be like, I love this. They may not know that Aaron Lindemann made them because I didn't put my call sign on it. But, I hope at some point, somebody goes to a ham fest in 50 years and amongst the pile of all their detritus, there's a Modern Morse key that they're willing to part with. I think
by their nature, the keys last forever. I mean, you're not going to wear it out, right?
Yeah.
So it may need a tune-up in 50 years, but it's not going to wear out, and it's going to go to somebody, and it's going to be like I have a key. I have a key that was used by a friend of mine who passed away about 10 years ago, and I bought the key from his estate because it was like that. it was his key, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm going to keep it, you know. So they really do have like a personal connection that's very strong.
And there's something to be said to have products that have like a legacy, you know, like where you're leaving it in your will for somebody, or you know, or like somebody that it can be passed down because it's durable enough,
Yeah,
and it's got so much longevity that it's going to be around like way longer than our lifespans, and maybe 2 or 3 lifespans.
I have my father-in-law's paddle, and the only thing he did was operate 40 CW, 100%. That's all he ever did. And, you know, having his paddle was very important to me. I mean, out of his whole estate, the only thing I wanted his paddle. Everything else could go. But, you know, that was the thing because it was very important to him. Anyway.
And it's so funny, too, because we've had, just in the past few months, we've had some CW-focused podcasts. And I'm thinking about KPH and how those ops, you know, that was the thing that they did, right? And like, you didn't screw around with their bugs. Like they had the bug, and it was like an extension of them. And there is that thing with paddles. It's like an extension of you when you're using it. And so that, you know, by default, it's like a little piece of you when something happens to you. You know, like people want to, you know, inherit you know, a paddle.
And you know, in our last episode, Bob and Don were talking about paddles and bugs and getting these 100-plus-year-old Vibraplex where the finger stock had been worn down, and you have no idea what messages were transmitted and by whom or how many. You just know there were a hell of a lot of them. Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, now in my case, my Elmer Steve, who taught me Morse code and taught me, you know, got me licensed and everything, had the Brown Brothers BTLA. And that's what I learned. I mean, I initially learned to send on a basic straight key, but then I got used to using that paddle. So when I got my General for my birthday, my parents bought me my BTLA because I'd grown up, you know, in the hobby learning on that Brown Brothers paddle. And I've had that my whole ham life, which is almost 50 years now. And yeah, it's just the thing that I'm used to, and it means a lot to me because I've had that. My parents bought it for me, and that's, you know, a similar one is what I learned on. So yeah, I mean, it's a thing.
So Aaron, before we wrap up, let's take a look to the future. Can you share any thoughts with us about what you're going to be doing besides the stuff you got now?
Yeah, what kind of bug are you going to make anyway?
What kind of bug? Actually, so speaking of that, I have been, number one request I've had is people that said, I would love to buy one of your keys, but I'm a single lever guy. And that's, you know, that's like Catholic versus Protestant sort of fight right there. Right?
It is.
No, that's right and wrong.
Yeah. That's fair. And so I went down this path. In fact, Larry and I have had several sit down meetings to talk about it because he's made a couple of single levers himself. A single lever actually is more mechanically complicated than a dual lever. I'm trying to figure out how to fit it into the same footprint, so the same chassis size would look the same. And I'm just running out of space. So there's going to be some clever work done there, but to try and make a single lever that works with these keys. Now, to that point, I have a friend, Tony, a local ham here, and he sends it. He's part of the special club that they get on, and they rag chew at 50 words per minute at night. And he was like, he was one of my testers, and he's like, I don't like iambic, like dual paddle keys. I'm a single lever guy, but like I can send with yours. That's fine. He's like, don't even worry about a single lever, but I'm working on a single lever. That is something that's out there. I don't think I'll have anything ready for Hamvention, but because I'm already, as my dad literally, like when I see him every day, he goes, 73 days left,
tick, tick.
Nothing tick, like tick. A little fatherly motivation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, go ahead.
I was going to say, your paddles are small enough that if you had to make it a little bit bigger to accommodate a single lever paddle, I don't think that'd be a problem.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is reuse the same tooling that I have, because I've invested a lot of time in all these large pallets that I put in the machine that'll hold 8 parts at a time. So there's I'm trying to keep some economy of scale there, so I can make some changes on the internal parts of the arms, and then potentially, like for the single lever, if I change the PCB that's inside and I move the contact points literally, like I think it was like 8 or 9 millimeters down, maybe have to get rid of the switch because there's a switch built in there to change left and right. If I get rid of the switch, which takes up a lot of real estate, I can move the contact points down, adds a little bit more balance, put the bearing in the center, and then I can keep the same arm geometry with the center, and then I'm doing a double, like basically it's a 3-arm mechanism system. So there's plenty of CAD models out there of me experimenting with that. But once again, I got to deal with the balance. One of the things I am, so this is the V0, right? Which I want to make very obvious to everyone. This is my first key, right? So it's V0. It's a prototype. Now I've made 700 prototypes, but they're out there, right? That's because I had to lock down the design at some point because people kept asking for new features and I kept doing it, which was delaying me actually getting to some level of production. But I am messing around with
scope creep. It's something we know something about.
Oh yeah, it's a thing, and I'm my own worst enemy at that. Like the second I get a little noodle in my brain, I'm like, I don't want to commit, right? I don't want to hit the compile button just yet. I want to make sure that like I can change one more thing. And so I've started like messing around with taking a bunch of weight out of the arms. So like a bunch of like pockets that I've machined into certain areas, trying to bring down the weight a little bit. It's almost negligible, but like aesthetically it looks cool. So, and I'm just going to sneak those arms into a couple like functionally it'll be the exact same. They'll just be aesthetically a little bit different because they'll have like pockets in the arms. And I'm just going to make that a surprise for some people that like, hey, you're getting one of the cool arms. So it'll be like, it'll be like, hey, you got the golden ticket in your chocolate bar, right? Like, good luck. So that's fun. In fact, that's actually something I've been doing. Larry made when we talk about cases, Larry also is a phenomenal craftsman with leather. And one day he showed up with a bag with like 10 of these leather cases that like the key slips right into. Very similar to what you showed me with the TPU. And he had one that had a little strap that like goes around the front of the finger pieces to protect them. And I was like, I can't list these on the website because I'll sell them in 2 minutes and then I'll have 500 angry people that they can't get one. So instead, I kept them off to the side and I used them as a customer service tool where I had somebody that like there was a long delay. I messed something up with shipping or they got the wrong thing. And when I finally gave them the right thing, I gave them one of these one-of things. So if you're listening and you got one of those leather cases, realize N0SA made those. He said, I'm never making them again. I just wanted to have fun one day. And I made a bunch for you. Do with them as you please. And so I've just been giving those away to people.
That is such a sweet idea.
Yeah.
From him to you and from you to your customers. Kudos.
Yep.
So I can only mess up 10 or 15 times because that's all I have, right? So, but that's been fun because you would think like, oh, I'm going to hoard these and I'm going to give them to my friends. Well, I don't have to sugarcoat my friends. We're friends for other reasons. It's nice if you have that little nice to have that you can put in the package for somebody else. So especially when you're probably already starting off on the wrong foot with some customers. So that's kind of nice. So realize that if you're listening, you got one of those, they're limited edition, like cherish that. So yeah, that's been a thing. So this is almost becoming a full-time job. I fired most of my it's been slowly that we've been firing off all of my regular like contract customers to the point where I basically show up and I just run machines nonstop. I have about 160 chassis sitting on one of the machine over there that I have to do all the side holes for the contacts on the sides. And I don't have a mass programming operation for that. So I'm literally sitting there like just put an audio book on. And in fact, I'm probably going to re-listen to Hail Mary because I listened to it when I first came.
That's a good one.
By the way, have you read The Egg by Andy Ware?
The Egg? No.
The Egg. He wrote a short story called The Egg. That's your homework.
I didn't know about this.
And it kind of I hope it's the same Andy Ware. Like when you go and you look at his bibliography, it's him, right? It's listed with all his books. But it's a quick read, a short story. It's kind of mind bendy. It's kind of sci-fi, kind of like fantasy, spiritual almost. It's a departure from the other stuff that he does, but it was just a really interesting, thought-provoking conversation that he's having basically with these characters, these two characters in the story.
He is such a fascinating guy. Like a really quick little side story about him, since you like him. I'm a longtime supporter of the SETI Institute, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. I love them. They do a great science podcast. It's just a really cool set of people. And it was sometime after the pandemic, they started doing like film screenings, and they did a film screening of The Martian, which in our family we watch annually. And we've all read the book, but we watch this annually, the director's cut. And and because of timing, it was California time and stuff. We only stayed around for the first part of it, and they said that Andy Weir would be there, and it was a Zoom thing, and they invited their supporters, and so me, my wife, my daughters, we all set up and started the Zoom session. I was expecting there to be like 200-300 people or whatever, but the SETI Institute kind of did this. It was not last minute, but kind of last minute, and there were only besides the people with the SETI Institute and Andy, there were only like 3 other people there. And it was a really small group. It was like maybe 12 people. And so we had this incredible hour of one-on-one time almost with Andy. And he is just the most awesome guy, hilariously funny and like real life, and super humble. Just a hilarious person, and all that stuff comes out in his writing. You read his writing, you're like, oh man, that's his personality right there, so really fascinating stuff.
I love that with The Martian. He wrote it and published it as a blog post, so he had a whole follow before it was a book. He was posting, because the story is kind of written as a blog post, right? You're getting the updates, right? And on what this astronaut's having to deal with. And then it became so popular that it got basically re-edited and put into a book. And that's I think that's one of the coolest stories about how a book came to be, or novels, is that he started as a blog post on his website. So
it's awesome.
Well, as we kind of wind down at the end of the show here, Aaron, is there anything else that we should touch on before we wrap up? I kind of get the feeling we could do this for another 2 hours, but
oh yeah, trust me, yeah, we've only had one bio break, so man, that's we are working on some other products. I've been, the side note here is that my entire life I've always wanted to work on a product and design with my dad, right? I grew up literally going to work with my dad, like when I was a kid on the weekends, because my dad was a workaholic, and I would sit there, like for instance at the Allied Signal, he used to work on SATCOM equipment, and I'd be sitting there, doing algebra homework in his office while he's working on some RF test for something, right? And I always thought it would be so cool as a kid. I was like, one of these days I'm going to be an adult and I'm going to be one of the engineers that's working with my dad, right? And so I've been trying to find a project that we can work on together, and now we've finally done that. And so we actually have something where he's working on a design for me that's an accessory for these keys. And I won't go into too much, but I just want to give you the backstory that we found the thing that we can work on together, because he's a brilliant RF engineer, FPGA designer. And so we finally found something that's radio related, that's adjacent to these keys, that we can do together, and you're going to get the full Brian Lindemann suite of engineering intelligence out of it.
Nice.
So I am super excited about that, because he doesn't make bad things. I'll just say that right now. He doesn't make bad things, and hopefully at Hamvention we might actually have some there, with these things. So that's the whole idea for me. Hamvention is kind of like the big deadline, and so we don't got a lot of time. He keeps saying, you have 72 days left.
72 days.
Yeah, exactly. We might actually be at 72 days. I think it's really close. So if you haven't booked your Airbnb, do it now.
Are you guys going to have a booth, or where are you going to be?
Yeah, so we will be there. We're going to be in building number 1, same place we were last year, right across from DX Engineering. So if if you see DX Engineering, you'll probably smell me eating pizza in my booth.
Yeah, because your booth was right on that aisleway that walks right through the dead center of Building 1.
Oh yeah, and I'll tell you, I don't know how we got that booth. I have no idea. First year we rolled in and we got that booth. I will tell you, it's I'll attribute it all to my dad, because that's the sort of guy he is. Somehow we had just like a flea market spot, and then we went from. He was like, I made a couple phone calls, and suddenly like, what building would you like to be in, Aaron? And I was like, Building 1, right? Because that's when they walk in, like that's the first place to be. And he's like, oh, I got us in an end cap of Building 1, and I was like, how did you do that? But it happened, so we're there. And as long as we, as long as we keep renewing every year, we'll get it. As long as we don't upset the organizers. So, we got a fantastic spot, so it'll be easy to find us. So going through the main gate, go walk up to where AMSAT is at, and then walk right through that door, and we're right there, right on the right-hand side. So, and we did get a spot for 4 days in May for the vendor night this year.
Excellent.
So we'll be there as well. I didn't get a spot last year. In fact, I wasn't even prepared to like even, because we showed up and they had a couple of tables open. Someone's like, just set up. And I was like, I'm not prepared for the onslaught. So, plus 4 days in May for me is more of a social gathering. I like to just walk around and talk to people, but we will have a booth, or a table at 4 days in May as well. So come find us. Get
there uber early. I was there about 90 minutes in advance. And I landed up with a primo table right beside Asher Farhan, and Spool Tenna was on the other side of me, and just down the road from Pac Tenna and Halibut. So we were all in a row there. Get there early for best pick if that's your thing.
I'm going to get a booth right across from you so I can just stare at you. Make strange faces.
Yeah, you'll have to get across from George, because unfortunately I'm not going to be there this year.
No, really?
But I hope you have a great time and you sell lots of keys, because you deserve it.
I appreciate that.
You'll sell everything you bring.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
I'll be there with Mark working the Halibut booth, so we can both make faces at you if that helps.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
Just make sure you bring a few of the new product and sell it to us before you let the masses in.
Okay. All right.
Just remember, seek us out.
The buddy deal.
That's right.
We heard how you're trying to be really equal with everyone, but we'd like to have an exception to that rule.
That's right. We want to be more equal than others.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that's I would say I would attribute a lot of the success of the business so far was accidentally because I had made friends with all these ham radio operators that also happen to have really good outlets, right? And so out of the blue, all of a sudden, like Mike, Kate MRD, he not a big CW guy, but like I'm hanging out with him at Pac Beach, and I showed him one of the keys, and he was like, sit down, I'm turning the camera on, here's a mic, I want you to talk about it. Yeah. And I didn't ask him to do that. That just happened. It was just one of the most organic things. And then it just kind of trickled down from there. And I can tell when somebody publishes a video about one of my keys, because I see the hits, the traffic on the website just spike. And then I can go to YouTube, look up Modern Morse, and I'll be like, oh, somebody published a video. So
just brace for the ham radio workbench bump.
Yeah, that's a thing. So
it is a thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. So because you guys spend more of my money than I can. So,
and thank you.
You're welcome.
So I want to thank you for coming on, and it's just really fun to talk with you. I mean, you're a really interesting guy and just really a lot of fun to hang with. So I appreciate that, but I really appreciate your your artistry for the design and all that, but also your skill in the engineering and manufacturing is just really cool. I mean, especially that's something like I know nothing about mechanical design and engineering, let alone running a CNC machine. So that's a way cool ability. And the fact that you can take that interest and point it at making kind of stuff that we all like we're really grateful for you to do that sort of thing.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been fun. There's been a lot of stress, but I'm figuring out how to manage that stress and try and just keep the road in front of me paved with happy thoughts.
That sounds great. Well, thanks so much, Aaron, for coming on. So any parting words before we wrap?
I really appreciate you guys having me on. I've been on a couple other podcasts before, live streams, and I was actually the most nervous coming on this panel because I'm like, oh, they're going to hit me with some hard questions. So I hope I prepared well enough. And like I said, thanks for everything you guys do for the hobby as well. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks. And so from all of us at the Ham Radio Workbench, 73.
73.
7-2s.
And as Mark says, be good humans.